Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
All right, so today we're back with another full episode, proper episode of the podcast.
Yes.
I feel like the last few times we've been live, we've been doing gaming.
Yeah, we've been doing a
or
lot of
singing,
gaming recently.
Or
No, the
something
singing
that's-
didn't happen. I don't know what you're talking
It's
about.
not real, not real. But today we've sort of returned to form, and we're back with an episode of the podcast. And today we have a very special guest. We have our friend Zippy Das Pinhead. The first thing we want to clarify is that is indeed how you say it. How long, Zippy, did you let us go believing it was Zippy Das Pinhead?
Well, okay, so the first thing is that every time someone says it, it's funny how people, they either get it right or they get it wrong. And they either sound it out real slow, and it's really obvious to tell if they're telling it right or wrong. Or they say it real fast, and if you say Zippy Das Pinhead, or you say Zippy Das Pinhead, and you say them both just real fast like that, it's
More or
kinda
less
hard.
the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more or less the same, right? So
Mm.
sometimes it's hard to tell that someone's saying it wrong until you hear it for the first time when they're like just casually saying it. I honestly don't know how long I'll let you guys go.
I think that's just everyone's like first thing, because like they look for words that they're like familiar with, so like no one's gonna sit there and go, "Oh, it's pinhead as opposed
Yeah,
to
it's
pinhead."
Das, the German the. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's weird,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, which is interesting. So that overrides the fact that pinhead is a word in English and spinhead is not a word in English.
yeah, but that seems to be the more common answer is Das
Yeah.
Pinhead as opposed to Das Pinhead.
That's fascinating to me. See, people, as Morgan knows, people say my name wrong all the goddamn time. Like,
Taco.
I think it's
Yeah,
because you throw
Taco
that
Bus, that's a-
you throw the zero in there, and
I think
like
the
people
zero-
just
so
like
the zero-
can't read it.
zero does it, and I get a lot of Toctopus.
Well, the other thing too is like I pretty much ever since I've been on Twitch, somebody's been mispronouncing my gamer tag, right? So it's I'm kind of used to it at this point. And,
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Like
See,
that's
I
the-
always get Mapiso. Mapiso? Morrigan?
I remember the first time I saw Morgan in the chat. I think it was we were actually playing the Division.
We were
and,
playing
like,
the division.
Yeah.
I was there.
I was like, how do you say your name? And you're like, don't worry about it. And I was like, no. I was like, please. I was like, explain. I was like, I want to get
No,
this
yeah,
right.
I literally was like, listen, you can just call me Morgan. That's my actual
Yeah.
name.
But that wasn't good enough for Trev. I remember because
Yeah, I insisted.
Trevor's
I was
like,
like,
no, I know your name
I
is
was like, I need to know what the name is.
he's like, I want to know actually how to say it properly. And I remember how like bummed out you were to explain it. Like I remember just reading through text and like, because this is before this was before I had ever actually spoken to Morgan.
Yeah, I think this was the first
and-
time she'd talked to any of us.
No, I talked
No, it
to
was
Morgan
like,
in Melly's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I
but-
think it was like, it was one of the other times that I had been in TIFFs.
Yeah.
When she wasn't playing, what was it, Legend of Zelda?
Link? Yeah, I was gonna
Exactly,
say Link,
yeah,
but I was
yeah.
like, no,
And-
it's Zelda.
And I distinctly remember the way you said it. You said, it's a Persona reference. No one gets it. You sounded, through text, you sounded so sad that no one got it. I felt real bad.
I think Beast was the only person who got it because I think Beast
Beast
said
did
something
get it.
about it, and
Beast
I was
did
like,
get it,
I
yeah.
was like, all right. I was like, that's probably why I don't know what this is.
Hey, Gameology.
Hi,
how are you?
Gameology. Talk
Yeah,
to
talk
Zero
Zero.
Puss.
You know, one day I'm gonna get that fucking name back. Alright, and it'll be glorious, and everybody's gonna have to change all the links to my page.
Kelly's on her way. Hi, Tony. I just wound up putting my IRL name into all of my online names. By the way,
Protoman, yes, somebody knows Protoman. Tony, did we just become best friends? For those of you that don't know, I am wearing a Protoman t-shirt. They are a rock opera band.
A rock
And
opera.
most-
That's interesting.
Yes, and most of their songs are the story of Mega Man. So,
Ah,
Oh,
interesting.
yeah, it's actually really well done. It's good music.
the Zippy, did we ever have a conversation about this? This will seem unrelated, but just in spirit of like things a lot of people don't know about. Did we ever have a conversation about Reboot?
Oh, we mentioned it, and I was like, you need to make Morgan watch it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
But I don't think we ever actually talked about it in
yeah.
person.
Well,
yeah.
to address the first point, I mean, me and Morgan should should watch Reboot, Morgan, if you'd like
my
to.
God.
It's a wonderful
It's such
part
a
of
great kids show. It's so
it's a-
nerdy and wonderful. Amazing.
Yeah, it's and you know what though, Morgan? You know what might sell you on it? The voice acting's terrific.
Oh, the voice acting. Okay.
Yeah, the voice for Megabyte, Zippy, is like one of
Oh.
the best like kids voice performances of all time.
Yes,
Uh,
I
and,
will agree with that. He did
Uh,
such a good job.
actually, Reboot, as you'll remember, has a character named Ray Tracer.
Oh, that's funny.
Do I?
it-
Hmm.
No, I'm not fucking with you. It really does. Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to remember who it is though.
It's the dude. He's one of the other like what do they call them? The surfers. Like
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. I remember.
yeah.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know what that's a reference to, so all the Reboot names, or a large portion of them, are a reference
Yeah,
to some
sugar.
like computer nerd related thing.
See, I don't know what
Melly was a
Reboot
fan
is.
of Reboot? Melly, when you get on, we're getting back to this topic, okay?
Are you talking about that like show about the robots? Because like I
It's-
don't.
No, they're about they're sentient
about,
beings that
uh,
live inside a computer.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, and some of them are
Well, weren't
literally
they
binary
robots?
ones and zeros, and the rest are sprites. All the main characters essentially are sprites, and
Yes, exactly.
all
yeah.
of the common folk are ones and zeros.
Yeah, and the like all the names are based on some like computer nerd shit, like
Mhm.
like hexadecimal and ray
Mhm.
tracer, for instance.
Megabyte,
Yeah,
and all of his various
Was
forms.
this a show for children or was this like a show for
Oh, yeah.
like more?
Yeah,
This
Oh,
was
okay.
a show for children. It's actually made history as the first fully 3D animated show kids.
yeah, and you can tell it's
Or
the
even,
first
like,
when you look
outside
at the
the
quality
box
of the
or whatever.
animation.
Oh yeah, you can tell, especially in the you're like, Jesus, this is worse than Toy Story, like Toy
And-
Story 1.
But the most important thing about the show, uh,
I
the-
love Toy Story. We're
I
gonna
love
talk about
Toy Story.
Pixar in a bit, hopefully.
most-
Yes.
the most important thing about Reboot is that it's Canadian.
Oh yes,
Ah.
yep.
But the other most important thing about Reboot is that the character named Ray Tracer leads us really conveniently into our first topic, which we didn't have an order for the topics, but
No, we
I want to
didn't.
use this topic as a chance to explore some things about Zippy.
Oh,
So
okay.
traditionally, what we do is we like interview our guests and stuff like that, and we'll get to that. But I want to use this topic as a chance to explore something in particular about you that I think is surprisingly common in our Twitch community, which is you're a tech guy.
Oh yeah, yep. I went to the school for computer science. Got my bachelor's degree with a minor in math as well.
Mm.
And immediately got a job as a systems administrator instead of a programmer. Of course, right? You know, that's how it always goes.
Mhm.
So my first job out of college was at IBM, actually, which I don't
Mhm.
mind saying because I don't work for them anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And that one was sort of programming, but it was like... Okay, so what I was doing is I was part of like a security group. Basically what we did was we wrote automated scripts that would go in and check all the settings on a customer's server and be like, are you following the standard or not, essentially.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so that was a little bit of programming because I got to write some of the modules that those automated tools used when they were on the servers.
Mhm.
But like, I mean, it was like YAML files half the time. Like it was, you
Yeah.
know, it wasn't really like, you know, doing C or even like simple bash scripting or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then after being at IBM for only 6 months, I got the job where I'm currently at, which I'd rather not disclose, obviously.
Sure.
But now what I do is I work as a administrator / operations engineer for a major cloud provider.
Sure. Yeah.
And so one of the cool things we do is we sell to everybody from like mom and pop shops that are just trying to get a website going for their, you know, local pizzeria that's been in the family for 3 generations, all the way up to major game company that I can't disclose because I would get sued if I did, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I can guarantee virtually everyone in this call and in the podcast chat, I can virtually guarantee you've all played a game that has been on one of the servers that I'm responsible for.
Mhm.
So it's a big deal, and we also do like everything you can think of in between. There's some kind of business that probably has some kind of host with us, if that makes sense.
You've mentioned something which I think is really interesting. So like you're not a game developer, of course, explicitly, but you work as part of something that contributes to the end user experience of a game. And
Definitely.
I think oftentimes people don't realize how many of those jobs there are.
Oh yeah.
Like, because everybody thinks they want to work in games. Well, I want to be a game designer, and it's like, well, game companies hire people. They may hire people like you, or they contract out to people like you. They hire data scientists. Some of them hire psychologists, like on-staff psychologists.
There's all sorts of examples of that kind of thing, right? You're in academia for computer-related stuff, right? So
yes,
like you're well aware of the fact that when a customer comes to you and they say, "Hey, I need to know, I need to have a program that can automate this," right? And even though I'm not doing code, I remember what it's like to do code, right?
Yeah.
You don't just have to figure out how do I automate this for them. You actually have to go research what they're asking you to automate. So if you're approached by like a cancer doctor, I forget the name off the top of my head.
Oncologist.
Oncologist, thank you. Like if you're approached by an oncologist and they're like, "Hey, I need you to write an AI program that identifies different types of skin cancer," you don't just get to go like write that automation. You actually have to go research skin cancer and understand like the different physical properties of how it can appear on your skin before you can write that program, right?
Yeah, domain expertise is critically important.
Exactly. So like there's even like times where they'll hire physics people, or they'll hire psychologists because they're doing like I wouldn't be surprised if what's the name again? Senua, right? Senua Sacrifice.
Oh, wait, Senua Sacrifice. It's a ninja.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be surprised because that's the one where like she's constantly like hearing her own like self-doubt whispering throughout the game, right? Or
there's like it has like sort of like a depiction of like I guess what would be classified psychologically as a form of psychosis.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they hired like psychologists for that game to be like, okay, well, what sorts of thoughts would they hear? What sorts of things would they be thinking? That kind of stuff. So
yeah, exactly. I want us to quickly say hi to Paka and
Paka, John, Trinsic
here, and what? Sorry.
No, I was just saying all the people that were in chat, Paka, John, and Trinsic.
Oh yeah.
Hi everybody.
We have a new layout, as you can see. I really like the new layout, by the way.
I think.
Yeah, so the stuff I was working on is the cam overlays, which for everyone's name, and then for the guest it says current guest, and it's all animated. The name spin, and then
yeah, I like it a lot actually. I liked the old one quite fine, but I think this one is an improvement.
No, Trev worked on.
Hey Rob, how are you?
Hi.
Good to see you again.
it's not wrong.
You and me haven't played a game of we fixed that.
Yeah. Well, he moved recently, so that's probably why.
Oh, that'll do it. Oh, I've been there.
He's actually in New York, actually. So.
Oh shit! Right on. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of if you're out there and you want to work in games, because I feel like a lot of young people want to work in games. You can do why do all your guests have cute cats? I don't know. It's just a.
I guess it's just a thing.
I think it was a very popular thing on Twitch. Is like you either own cats or dogs or both.
Pretty much, yeah.
Lillian.
She's being naughty.
Yeah.
Stop sitting on. She wants to sit on my PlayStation.
She does like doing that.
Not for sitting.
It's hers now. It's not yours.
Mine likes to go around behind on the monitor stand and then like do this over the monitors, and it's like you're gonna knock all of those over right now.
Oh, is she gonna? I'm just gonna let her out now because I guarantee she's gonna go over here and she's gonna knock over that Mercy figure.
Oh, not again. See, Lillian goes after the Mercy figure because I made Mercy. I don't know how
she knows that, but yeah,
she knows.
That's the thing.
Okay.
Do you know? Yes.
And it's usually, and she only ever does this when I'm on the phone with.
She does.
It's so that's my conspiracy theory. But yeah, there's all sorts of ways to work in games that aren't just being a game designer.
Oh yeah,
Which
yeah.
is what everyone goes after, obviously.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to be the next Hideo Kojima, and they just aren't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the
I remember,
Yeah, speaking about-
well, because you guys were bringing up like there's like even like psychologists that they hire in those like areas. I remember when I wanted to be a psychology major, that was like one of the things that like was presented and like brought up to me. I was like, wait, what? And then I didn't realize that like psychologists are brought in for a lot of not like specifically related fields for like psychology, but there's other things like for tech places and like different companies for like.
There's a lot more interest as well from, and I'm sure Rory knows about this, but there's a lot more interest from like AI sector as well for both psychologists and like neuroscientists, because we're starting to think more and more. Okay, well, if we can replicate how a biological brain works, then we can get more and more advanced AI.
And also, AI is sort of like is also like neuroscientists are now being sort of interested in recruiting like AI people, I think, and like a lot of people that were previously working on like brain things are now interested in looking at like, AI related things as well. So there's like a lot of back and forth. Credits of a game, you'll see the job. Yeah. You'll see jobs credited. You never would have imagined wherever.
That's like the
making
same goes for
videos.
movies though, but I imagine on a much larger scale because there's so much like depending on the scale of the movie. Like Endgame probably had like so many different like titles and jobs and like performances. It's like whoa, like
I remember sitting
Endgame
through
had
that.
something like 14 different visual effects studios alone.
Yeah.
So just for the VFX portion of that, they hired, I think,
14
something like
different studios.
14 different companies. Like, are you kidding me? And I mean,
Yeah.
you can tell. Like, look at Thanos' face. He has
Yeah.
stubble. The stubble catches the light. Like, it's a physical object on his
Yeah.
face. Like,
And,
that's
like, as-
insanity.
as someone who just started picking up, like I'm nowhere near good at in any way, shape, or form at After Effects, but I know the stuff you can do with After Effects. Just knowing that and then seeing how good it's done in movies,
you
I'm just like,
see
yo,
something like that, you're like,
how, like, I'm over here barely able to get like lights shining, and like they're over here doing like individual like molecules.
I have there's a group of people, you might know of them on YouTube, called Corridor Digital.
Yes,
And they do a lot of like meme videos with special effects, right? But they also have a behind the scenes channel called
the
Corridor
crew. Yeah, I watch them a lot.
Yeah, they have a VFX artists react series.
Oh yeah, that's a
Amazing
great
about
series.
this kind of stuff. Like they taught, like that's where I got the Thanos' face thing from, is from them. Like they are really, like basically they're like, okay, we see in a lot of industries they're doing this, yada yada reacts to things in their own industry, and they're like, we want to do it for visual effects because we think that a lot of people don't understand what goes into this, or we want to like raise the veil a little bit, right? And like them talking about Thanos' face, you can tell like all of them are just like, good God, I would never want to do that. And these are like visual effects. These are people who do this for a living, and they're like, that is so much work. There's so much put into that. Like,
I can imagine. Like I don't know how many of you have seen. I imagine a lot of you have seen the second Mummy movie, the Scorpion King.
oh yeah.
They did you probably know the video. They did one
wait.
where they
You mean the
fixed.
one with the Scorpion King, or do you mean the actual?
Yeah,
movie?
No, the one
Where
with the
the
Scorpion
rat
King,
comes
where he's
out
like
and-
half
Yeah.
Scorpion.
There's an
One of the
actual
worst
feature
visual
film
effects
called
shots of all time.
So that movie is notorious for having like a really bad scene for like Dwayne when he comes out half Scorpion, half like person, and they went and like fixed it up, and like I was like, Jesus, I was like, this looks so
Yeah.
much better.
They went in and took like what, and I'm not to knock the Corridor guys, because they're trying to put out a movie like once a week or twice a week or something crazy like that. So they only have limited time to put into things, and you can tell because every now and then, like once or twice a year, they put out a video where you can tell that they spent like 2 or 3 months on it as opposed to like 2 or 3 days on it, and like you can tell that these guys are actually really skilled. So I'm not trying to knock them or anything, but you can tell that they're they're purposely aiming for a level that's less so that they can get it done in time, right? But they know what they're doing, and that sort of thing just like, oh, it creeps me out, like how much time you have to put into that. Like,
So I want to touch on two things John said, actually, which is one of them is lots of current loot box and UI design are largely a result of psychological consultation and studies on human behaviors. It's bonkers. Yes, that's 100% true. There's a lot of like, sort of like, I don't mean to demean the work of the psychologists who've worked on that, but like kind of like Psych 101 stuff behind like how to get people to buy loot boxes.
Oh, that's
And,
what they use them for? That's fucked. Like,
because it's like I don't, it's not really marketing, but it's like almost marketing. Like it's not fair to call it marketing because marketing is so much more than that. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of like little psychological trick.
Well, like think about how like with me, like, I mean, obviously, like I'm not buying loot boxes here, but like I'm wanting to earn them. Like just last night, I was like, okay, I'm gonna play until I get a loot box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's that like thrive and like need to fulfill the urge to like do it, and it's like
alpha packs on Siege are another good example. You know,
yeah. I think anything that
80%
rewards like
right?
random loot or like collectibles or whatever is something that will generally push for people to do stuff like that.
yeah. And once you start doing that, that sort of thing can snowball actually pretty quickly. The other thing I like that John said was just something about RTX, because we are actually going to be talking about precisely that. It was one of the topics that Zippy really wanted to talk about. So Zippy, why don't you run us through? So like people like ray tracing as a concept has existed for a very long time.
Oh, forever. Longer than it's actually been implementable.
Exactly. Yeah. Like many things actually. Like as an AI person, I can say that neural networks are really very much. Neural networks are very old as a concept, but we haven't really started using them to their anywhere close to their potential until recently. But
well, what's funny about like neural networks are kind of like weird because they had like a guy who came up with the idea, but that was before we even had computers, for Christ's sake. And then we got computers and we did neural nets for a little while, and then we're like, oh, this is a dead end, and we put it away.
Yeah,
until
we put it away.
a few decades later, and we were like, oh, well, now we can do neural nets with a couple million nodes. Is this worth doing again? Oh, it is worth doing it. Like that's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, that's kind of a tangent,
And,
but yeah.
and now they're
neural
part
nets
of
are
like
weird
self-driving
because of that.
cars and fraud
Yeah,
detection
exactly,
systems and all sorts of things. And that is actually like for people who like are interested in the technical side. Neural networks are actually my research area. I feel like I've
Nice,
talked about AI
nice.
before, but that is my specific area of research. But a lot of people heard about ray tracing in the context of gaming.
And a lot of them
ago.
it was their first exposure, which is one
So
of the
run us
reasons
through the
NVIDIA
chronicle
screwed the
of that.
pooch.
Run us through the chronicle of that, of like when people started hearing about it and what people started feeling about it when they experienced it.
So, I actually want to talk about Pixar first, real quick, because I think Pixar is actually people's first experience with ray tracing, whether or not they actually realize it. Because if you've seen a Pixar movie since Monsters University, well, including Monsters University, but anything Monsters University or newer, you have seen a heavily ray traced film. And we'll get into that. I have a little photo album of different Pixar movies that I've shown you guys already, but well, we'll get into that in a little bit. But like, ray tracing people's first exposure is probably a 3D animated movie of some sort, regardless of whether it's Pixar or DreamWorks is now ray tracing as well, and like virtually every major 3D studio is now ray tracing, right? So, but that was actually kind of the holy grail of computer graphics tech for the longest time. It's been a concept since the 1980s. Pixar has done an approximation of it as early as the original Toy Story, but they didn't have true ray tracing until Cars. And even in Cars, they didn't have like full ray trace scenes. They actually did it very cleverly. What they did is they took the scene, they fed it into a computer, the computer looked at it and went, oh, everything in this area is going to be roughly the same color because that's just how lighting works. So we'll do one ray trace for that whole area and apply it to that whole splotch, and then they go into more detail in like things where the surface is curved or whatever, right? And they do more rays at those points. That's how they did it. They didn't do full ray tracing, which is literally you simulate every single ray of light, which is both what makes ray tracing awesome and what makes it almost impossible to do, because it takes a massive amount of computational power, as I'm sure you guys can guess, if you're trying to simulate every single spot on the screen. So Gameology, but let me actually share this album real quick, because I kind of have a little bit of a spiel.
The album in the chat there so you can get an impression.
Yeah, so let's go through a little bit of what I was talking about here. All right, so the first thing I have in this album is
so you guys can go ahead and click on that, and you guys can just follow along.
Follow along if you want. But I wanted to start with Incredibles and Incredibles 2, and the reason I wanted to start with this is because you can see these are virtually identical scenes, right? Dash is on the left, Rob is in the middle, and Violet's on the right. Now, there's some differences in the character design because the kids are a little bit older and everyone's tired in Incredibles 2 in that point in the story, so they'll have bags under their eyes and stuff, right? But they're eating dinner, there's food on the table, there's, you know, plain ceramic-looking cups, and both scenes are lit from a single light overhead, right?
Yeah.
And yet, look at the differences here.
I would say focus on the ceramic cups, actually.
Yeah, the cups
I
are...
want to see the difference.
Yeah, like, you can tell, like, in the first one, it looks like it's just a solid plastic object, right?
Yeah.
In the second one, you can see light that's getting inside the cup from above is actually radiating out through the material a little bit. And that's part of what ambient occlusion is, for instance.
Yes, another term people will be familiar with if they've gotten into settings on their PC games.
Yeah.
But what ambient occlusion is basically taking the material properties of what the light is striking into account. So, like, here, I got a cat here. This is a perfect example, right? And this is probably really hard to see because webcams are shitty quality and all that, but you can see at the edge of my cat, the light is catching the fur there that's sticking out on its own, and it's putting a little bit more glow and a little bit more light into that area. That's an example of ambient occlusion. Another one is, like, if you think about a dodgeball, right? Like, a dodgeball has that textured surface, and because of that, there's a lot of different highlights and a lot of different shadows that happen on that surface. Again, that's something you can simulate with ambient occlusion. But another really easy example is, let's say you're in a dark room, right? You have your hand. If you take your hand and you shine a flashlight through your hand, you're going to see in real time different light levels depending on where it's passing through your fingers. You know, in between your fingers it's going to be very bright.
All the time.
Exactly, yeah. And it'll get darker where your bones are essentially, and then it'll get lighter, and then eventually you'll get, that little bit of leak through right between the fingers. Is this pets? Yes. But like you can see that there. You can see that happening in between those two incredible scenes. Look at Dash's hair, for instance, right? In the first one, there's that highlight crest he has going on, and you can kind of tell that that's just painted in. That's not ray trace. That's just painted in. But if you look at the second one, you can see that highlight is more the whole front part of his hair where the light is striking it more directly. And it doesn't have that shine to it. It's got that more natural glow look to it.
Yes.
So like that's a perfect example. And you can see the same thing in Violet's hair too, because it's kind of almost over shiny in the first one.
I was gonna say in the first one it looks more shiny than it should be, and then the second one it looks more down.
And then in the second one it looks, more like how you would actually see light on like silky black hair, right? So like
yes.
But I want to point out something else that I think you guys probably didn't notice right away. Look at the egg rolls. Look at how the light is actually like kind of like going through the crust in some places and lighting up the second layer underneath. Like those egg rolls are perfectly lit. Those look almost real. Like they're just cartoon enough where they don't break the illusion and go into the uncanny valley. But that is perfect light simulation right there.
See, that's like actually looking at those. Now that you say that, because I was kind of thinking that, I'm like, oh yeah, those egg rolls look pretty good. Like if you look at those, like those literally actually do look like it just looks like a real picture of some egg rolls. And and if you look at the steak that's on,
Exactly. That's what I was gonna point out next.
Yeah.
The steak looks
Yeah.
kind of like rubber.
Plastic.
yeah, if you look at a steak, it looks like a little kid's kitchen steak.
Yes, yes,
Like,
100%.
that's what that looked like.
Like
Not
the
to
only
undermine
food-
The Incredibles 1 here, but you know.
Oh yeah,
this
no,
is just-
these are all great movies, and the
Yeah.
only reason that steak looks like plastic in Incredibles 1 is because they didn't have this technology then. They were working on it, and I think they even
Yes.
had some ray tracing in Incredibles 1, and I think if you look at that photo, you can see an example of it. Look at the covered dish near the front there that's like hiding a meatloaf or something.
Yeah.
You can see reflection of the light that is shining down on that dish in that shot. So I think there is a little bit of ray tracing going on there. I think there's a little bit of ray tracing going on in Dash's eyeballs as well.
Mhm.
But I think that's it. I think at that point they were only able to do, tiny bits of ray tracing, which brings me to my next point. Let's talk about Cars, okay?
Mhm.
So if you guys scroll down, the third picture in there is a photo from Cars. And I stole all of these from YouTube trailers, is where I got all of these screenshots before everybody freaks
Okay,
out.
all right.
Because I just kind of threw this together. But
Yeah.
in Cars was the first time that Pixar publicly said, yes, we are using ray tracing technology, but we're only able to use it, willy-nilly. Like we're only able to use it where we specifically want to. We aren't doing full rendered scene, right?
Mm.
And you can see that here. If you look at the hood of Doc Hudson there, you can see the background reflected in there, right? Selective ray tracing. Yes, Cornelius has it, yeah. So they did some ray tracing in the chrome on his bumper. You can see the landscape in the chrome on his bumper. They did it on his hood. You can see the landscape in his hood. And same thing in like the headlights, and I think they even did it with his little hood ornament thing, but it's very, hard to tell there because it's so tiny.
Mm.
But you'll notice they didn't do it with his eyeballs.
No.
And they didn't do it with the chrome around his eyeballs. And I think that was less a we can't do it and more of a we want those to actually be like part of the character's expressive face, so we don't want to mess with that. What's funny about this
I was
is
actually just about to say that specific. That was going to be my next point. I wasn't actually going to use Cars, but yeah, that's a great example. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and what's funny about this example is if you look at Nvidia's promotional screenshots, they have an almost identical example, which is what the next shot in my album is here. There is a classic navy blue car reflecting the environment around it. I just thought that was funny that here's, two things that are 10 years apart that are almost identical.
yeah, exactly.
But this is what NVIDIA is recommending people use ray tracing for, is selective ray tracing. They literally say we don't have the capability to do full screen ray tracing, full scene
Yes.
ray tracing, I should say.
Yeah.
And then, so that's one way that NVIDIA screwed the pooch. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but I think that's one thing that NVIDIA screwed the pooch with, is they needed to be clearer about that. They also need to be clearer about explaining what ray tracing is and why it's good.
Yes.
But now I kind of want to talk about two more Pixar movies real quick, which is I wanted to show when Pixar flipped on ray tracing fully, essentially. Because if you look at the Incredibles ones, like I said, I wanted to show that one because it's a direct comparison between two extremely similar scenes, right? But those movies are 14 years apart. You can do a lot in 14 years, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Definitely.
these two movies, Brave and Monsters University, are 364 days apart, so 1 day shy of a year apart, right? Brave was the last movie that they did selective ray tracing on. Monsters University was the first movie that they did basically full scene ray tracing on.
Yes.
And there's a huge difference here. If you look at the Brave screenshot, right? And again, I'm not trying to knock Pixar because all of their movies are extremely well done and they have a very distinctive art style that I think is amazing. And they are just they're in a constant state of evolution. They are constantly outdoing themselves in terms of visual quality. So this is meant to be a history, not a critique, if that makes sense. But you can see here there's if you look at Murdia's face, right? She's got a context shadow on one side of her face, and it's kind of got one shade on one side of her face and a different shade for the whole other side of her face. Yes, there's some rouge going on and stuff like that, but for the most part, you're not getting very like accurate depth shadows there, or that kind of thing. They do a better job on the clothes. I think the context shadows on the clothes match reality more. But I think all they did for ray tracing here was the eyeballs, so they could get reflections.
Yeah.
And a little bit of the hair and maybe the jewelry, but that could just be like a shadow map to do the jewelry. I'm not sure on that. But they also like to give Brave credit, because not only is it an amazing movie in terms of story and all that, but they also started doing some things that you can see in this shot, which is they did camera simulation. So instead of just saying, here's our camera, render what it can see, and being done with it, they're like, here's our camera, it has a focal length of this, it has an f-stop of this, it has a yada yada. So because of that, you can see that her father is a little blurred out, he's a little out of focus, and so is the grass in the background. So like they started doing like lens simulation and stuff here, and that is actually a big step. It's funny that making it look more fake, making it look like it's shot by a cinematic camera as opposed to what your eyeballs would see in real life, actually helps.
Yeah, actually improved it.
That's huge.
It's more real. It's kind of funny.
Like I feel like that's like one of the biggest things in like when you're studying like filmmakers and stuff like that is just like the manner in which, like you say, like doing something fake in order to achieve something, because like movies are theatrical and theatrics are like inherently fake, and sometimes relying on that is actually
better than relying on reality.
Better than relying on reality. And I mean, there's the really big examples of that, like the obvious one of having background music when there is no music in the scene is the most prominent example in cinema history of doing something fake for the purpose of like emphasis. But one of my favorite examples is always the way Christopher Nolan switches with aspect ratios in his movies. Like intentionally messing with the aspect ratio, I think, is a really interesting way of going about filming your movies. And actually, I won't spoil it, but it's done really well in Dunkirk.
I actually haven't seen Dunkirk, and I need to. I've heard nothing but good things.
I think I've seen Dunkirk. Wait a minute.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so Interstellar was not your first Christopher Nolan film. That's interesting.
Oh, I guess so. Oh my god. Oh my god.
I did bring up Interstellar, though, and since we're talking about computer graphics, I do want to go on a quick side tangent. They actually got
this whole damn podcast is side tangents. Don't worry about it.
They actually got a PhD physicist
Kip
to
Thorne.
write a model of, basically like feed them the math to what a black hole would look like. Okay, and then they ran the model. And they were like, what the fuck is this? This doesn't make any sense. And then they went back to him, and they showed him the model, and he goes, oh. Like, it would do that. And, like, what it was is that gravity, like, that's... So when you look at the black hole in Interstellar, which I assume everyone here's seen, I apologize if I'm spoiling things.
Now I have.
But if you look at the black hole, there's, like, that ring... And then they have another ring around it, and the reason for that is because gravity would actually lend the light around again. So you're actually seeing the same ring twice. It's a ring around the black hole, but because light is getting bent by gravity, you're seeing the other side of that ring as if it was around a different axis. It's it's so weird how that is, but they didn't even realize that would be a thing until they ran the numbers in a computer simulation specifically built to do this. And then they were like, wow. And of course they spruced it up a little bit and made it look fancy and all that kind of stuff for the actual movie. But they got research papers out of it. They got like two actual accredited research papers.
There are actual like published
out of this simulation that they built entirely for a movie. That is so cool.
And that's actually a big part of like computational physics. Like one of the benefits of like high level computational physics is visual effects, actually.
Oh yeah.
Another way you can contribute to the entertainment industry without actually explicitly like, hey, I would love to contribute to filmmaking, but I don't know anything. I'm not a cinematographer or a producer or anything. I'm a physicist. Well, like that's one thing you can do, First of all, I do want to say that hi, Jarrett. It took me more effort to understand your shitty joke that you just made than I'd like to admit, and certainly more effort than it took for you to write it. I was sad at how long it took me to read that and try to figure out what Jarrett was saying.
After
the
you
only
said that, I was
reason-
just like, oh.
The only reason why I've seen Dunkirk is because my cousin is obsessed with One Direction and Harry Styles is in that movie, so I watched it with her because of that.
Not only is Harry Styles in the movie, Harry Styles does a fine job in the movie. Actually,
Yeah, he's not that bad.
the
He's not shown as much as Madison was hoping he would be, though. So
there's a lot of different characters in that movie.
that was the
Um,
only reason why I saw that movie, was because my cousin is obsessed with Harry Styles.
But it's a high recommend. I really enjoyed it.
It was a good movie.
It's not my favorite of Christopher Nolan's movies, but it's really good.
I definitely need to see it. I've like I said, I've heard really nothing but good things. Like,
Well,
and if it
spoiler
wasn't a
alert.
good thing, it was like a thing. Like,
Spoiler alert, One Direction guy's in it.
Yeah.
whatever.
To be fair, all right, Jared, I'll bite. What? Never expect anything quality from me.
That's also
It's
very
sincere,
true.
though.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't even remember quite what we were even talking about. How did we get on Interstellar? What did I do?
We
Ray
were talking
tracing.
about Christopher Nolan and ray tracing and like visual effects and how they like did the
You're
whole
talking about the
yes, yeah,
aspect ratio
yeah. Oh,
change,
you're right.
and then-
yeah aspect ratio. That's how we got onto it.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan changing aspect ratio. Right, yeah, I distracted you from actually explaining your Monsters University. Oh, no, oh, wait, I think we did talk about that a little.
No, we just got
I
through
think
the
we talked
Brave
about
part.
Brave. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I
Oh,
wanted to say with
Brave, yeah.
the Monsters University shot that I have here is this is in my opinion a poster board, like a poster child shot for ray tracing right here.
Yeah.
And there's multiple reasons for that. So ray tracing, even in the selective quote unquote form, they're always saying like, okay, yeah, the best application for it is reflections and ambient occlusion, right?
Mm.
This shot has smorgasbords of both, okay? We're going to start with the easiest example because Mike's obviously the centerpiece of this shot, right? Look at Mike's giant ass eyeball. And you can see there are two windows, and above those windows there are two lamps, and you can see both of those perfectly reflected in his eye.
Yeah.
Except now look at everyone else's eyes, and you can see the exact same thing, but it's distorted in a different way because everyone's eye is a different color and everyone's eye is a different size.
Yeah.
So this is perfect simulation of reflections. You can't even tell. You know there's two windows behind the camera, but you don't even know how you know that. And you can even probably point almost exactly where they were you to be sitting where the camera is, simply because you can see it and have, like, in this case, like 30 points of reference in every single eyeball that you're looking at. And the thing that people don't realize is you have literally been trained since before birth what things look like and how light behaves. So you know when something is wrong and you know when something is right. Even if you can't actually place it, even if you can't put it into words what is wrong or what is right, you know at the core of your being whether what you're looking at is real or not, right? So, but then we also have huge examples of ambient occlusion here, because you've got the skin that Mike has, right? You can see that he's like a slimy, sweaty, slippery monster, right? He's got very smooth skin, yada yada. But if you look at the monster behind him with the orange and the three eyes and the polka dots, she has slightly rougher skin, and you can tell just by looking at her. You don't have to have like a scene of her like sandpapering a desk with her hand or something like that. You can tell she's got slightly rougher skin. And there's like 5 different examples of different types of fur here. You've got the yellow guy with the horns next to Mike. He's got like very short and very matted fur. But then you've also got a fuzzball, and that fuzzball is like picking up all different amounts of light depending on where each individual hair in that fuzzball. You can tell that the hairs deeper in are not picking up as much light, and they're like this royal purple, versus the ones like sticking out at the edge, they're almost white because they're picking up so much light. So like that, all of that is only possible because they have realistic light simulation through ray tracing. Like, I know that that's like all like very nitpicky things, But the more you can make something seem real, even in a cartoon setting like this, the more the audience connects with it on like a base level, on even like a subconscious level. So like, this is a huge thing, is basically what I'm trying to get at.
Yes.
And these movies were only 1 year apart, and yet there's a massive discrepancy in quality here. And it's because that's where RenderMan, which is Pixar's software that they use for everything, that's where they switched it from basically like, we have selective ray tracing support to, hey, do you want to render your whole movie with ray tracing? You can do that now. Yeah, it might take a little bit longer, but like, we have the capability of doing the entire scene now. And that's insane. Like, you can tell there's 30 or 40 different material types in this shot alone, of like the different monsters, their horns, their skin, their fur, all that kind of stuff. It's crazy. So that, I know that was like kind of a rant and I went off for a bit there, but like, it's
no, that's fine.
insane.
I actually want to side tangent on something actually. Which is
Before we do that, we should probably because
Yeah.
Melly is ready.
oh wait,
I think you can just join whenever.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
but not to because she didn't want to mess up the layout is the thing.
Oh, I'm just gonna.
yeah, no,
unjoin
Trev
right now,
has
yeah.
he can do it.
So Melly, yeah, pop in.
Good pussy ball theorem.
There she is.
And you know what's funny? I was like, you're gonna hear Pepe right away.
I'm
Hi,
surprised
Melly.
Quasar hasn't meowed right into the mic yet.
Melly, are you using different lighting than usual?
No, but there are some more overhead lights on than
That's
normal.
why. Okay, yeah. The light situation looks a little different than usual. Hello,
Yeah,
Pepe.
yeah.
Yes, it's
brighter.
the Switch.
Yes, switch.
Yes, the new Pokemon game is on Switch. Actually,
So something I was gonna say to back up Zippy's point on connecting with like more scenes that have like different lighting and stuff is that most people don't necessarily notice those things until they're pointed out, but like once you see those things after they've been pointed out, it's like, oh, okay, I can see where they're going from that. Because it's like you have scenes before where it's like light only affects certain areas and it doesn't look as real, and then now you have the ones where it's like it affects all the areas it should, and then it looks like it should in real life. So then you understand it's more real, and like you get the realism from.
Well, I mean, and like the other thing is like you get a much more what's the word, tactile feel from it, right? Like again, I mean, I'm going to use the monsters example thing as a reference here, but like if you were to come up and shake, yellow horn guy next to Mike's hand, like you would expect that to be like a thick fur fuzzy handshake, right?
I
Like
agree.
you know roughly what that would feel like just by how it looks. But if you go, watch a fur-covered animal from, say, the original Monsters Inc. instead of Monsters University, it's very coarse fur, and you're like, oh, this is like petting a mangy mutt kind of thing. And that's all of them because that's all they have the capability to do. So you get like a much, even if you're not thinking about it when you see it, you're thinking about it subconsciously, right? So like you're connecting with the characters more because you can have a better idea of what they are actually like, right? So again, like even in a cartoon setting, the more realistic you can get the lighting, the more the audience connects with the characters. And I think that's huge, both in video games where you're going for photorealism and for games where you're not going for photorealism. And that kind of brings me to like, how did NVIDIA screw up?
Yeah.
And I think NVIDIA screwed up in 3 different major ways. One is they did a very, very, very poor job of explaining what ray tracing is and why it's important. I really feel like they did, especially in their launch presentation. And they kind of threw it out there and expected people to just figure it out. Instead of, explaining this is what ray tracing is and this is why it's good, they were kind of just like, ray tracing, it's a thing, marketing terms, and it's just like, I think the other thing that they did wrong is they went a little too early.
Yes.
And then I think the third thing they did wrong is this one I'm kind of on the fence on whether this is wrong or not, but they have hardware acceleration for it.
Yes.
This is both a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing of that is that it will need to be hardware accelerated at some point if we want to get to the point where we can do real-time ray trace rendering at least 60 FPS for a video game. There's just no possible way that I can think of, at least, that you would be able to do that without some kind of hardware acceleration.
Mhm.
The problem with that is that, again, because they're doing it so early, we don't really know what that hardware acceleration looks like. We already had a software library that was open source because the new DirectX version includes support for ray tracing, which is all NVIDIA's hardware is accelerating. They're just accelerating how the DirectX library does ray tracing.
Mhm.
Which is why, that kind of brings me to the next point, which is why you can actually do ray tracing on AMD PCs, which is what Crytek just proved with their benchmark.
All right, so can you drop a link to that in the chat, please?
Yeah.
For,
Yep.
the Crytek thing, because I
Yep.
wasn't aware of this until you sent it to me today.
Yeah, so that's basically all this is CryEngine leveraging the newest version of DirectX, which has support for ray tracing. You don't necessarily need the hardware acceleration to do it. Now, that said, the AMD GPUs are not able to keep up, especially with the higher end of the ray tracing hardware accelerated NVIDIA options. But at the same time, they still do well because they have a lot more video memory in the higher versions of the AMD cards. They pack a lot more VRAM on there. So even though they're not able to handle it as well because they don't have hardware acceleration, they have the memory to be able to throw more stuff at the rendering, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's kind of weird how that works, is because they're actually not that bad at it, all things considered. But the reason that them doing hardware acceleration this early is a problem is twofold. Is one, we don't know if this is the cheapest and easiest way in terms of computational power to do it yet. So they might need to completely redesign the hardware acceleration elements, because those are literal silicon laid down, right? Like, you can't just write software to work around those. Those are meant to take A and give you B, right?
That's right.
So
yeah.
if that calculation that it's doing that's laid down in silicon that you can't change is not the most efficient way to do it, there's no way to update that. You have to just buy a new card with updated versions of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's problem one. Problem two is cost. Whenever you're doing something that needs to be hardware accelerated like that, and you're adding it into an already existing GPU package that has to be able to do everything else that a GPU already can do, you're just adding more silicon. You're adding cost, right? So that's another reason why the 20 series cards were so much more expensive. So those are the three things that I think NVIDIA screwed the pooch on. Because they did hardware acceleration so early, we don't actually know if that's going to be a benefit in the long run, and it increased the cost of the card. They did a very poor job of marketing ray tracing in terms of what it is, why it's good, and they're hopping in so early. And I really think that NVIDIA should have just let it incubate for another year, to be honest. Release what they have is, I think, the 16 series now, which is basically just the updated 10 series without ray tracing, right?
Yes. There's like a 1660 card.
Yeah, exactly. They should have just done that series, maybe teased ray tracing, and then brought ray tracing out a year from now, because they would have had more time with Microsoft's DirectX library to make sure that the way they're hardware accelerating is actually valid. Developers would have had more time with that library to decide, and they would have had more time to experiment with it to figure out, okay, where is it good to ray trace and where is it good to not? Because right now, I would say video games are in the Cars situation, in that Pixar.
Yeah, exactly. At the
launch spiel
beginning,
ahead.
when it's not good all the time, but
Exactly, they can only do it selectively, right? So
Yes.
I think developers needed more time to figure out where it was good to do that in, and whether it was worth doing it or not. Is this actually going to improve the gameplay or the graphical fidelity of my game or not? Or is it just going to eat up CPU resources without giving much? That sort of thing. I think developers would have had more time to figure out where they want to do it, where they don't want to do it. I think NVIDIA would have more time to actually make, both their driver software and their hardware acceleration more refined. And I think both of those things would have led to cheaper cards as well, because once you have that hardware acceleration figured out, then you can figure out, okay, well, how do I do the laser lithography to actually, print these GPU chips.
Yeah.
Like, you can start refining that process so that you're making them cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. But they're still, and this kind of brings us to like one of the points we had before we went live, which is it's almost like Nvidia is treating gamers the same way game developers treat gamers now, which is we're the beta testers for their hardware now,
Yeah,
as opposed to like
yeah,
having
exactly.
polished
Yeah,
hardware.
as opposed to having dedicated testers. Me and
Yeah.
Zippy and Trev had a conversation before the podcast about like what the state games are in now in beta versus like what beta was sort of originally intended to mean. I want to do okay. So first of all, John is right about the I don't know specifically about like Google's research initiatives on that, but like AI is one of the primary areas where quantum computing has hoped to make quite a dent, or could theoretically make quite a dent actually. But
Cornelius is right.
I want a side note about the ray tracing thing, which is a lot of people might think like certainly a lot of people got excited about ray tracing when they first heard about it, even though it was like improperly explained by NVIDIA, I would say. Or improperly communicated, actually, because I didn't say anything wrong.
I think people still got what ray tracing is. I just don't think NVIDIA. I think they needed to wait because they were over promising, under delivering.
Yes, exactly. But I one of the things like for people who think that they're not excited about ray tracing because like so there's like a big conversation going around in game design on like graphical quality versus like artistic intent, right? Like i.e. like not all graphical improvements are necessarily as true to artistic intent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you could remake Spyro right now, which they did remake Spyro and they kept it very true to the original art style. But if you made Spyro like more realistic looking, but changed the color palette, then it wouldn't feel like Spyro. But ray tracing, in my opinion, and lighting improvements generally are one of the few areas that's actually like it's a good thing that's immune to art style. Like,
I
always
would
an
agree.
improvement.
I would agree.
When me and Morgan played Borderlands 3, right, on release day, and one of the first things Morgan said to me was how good the lighting looked, right? Right, because it was such a drastic improvement. Whereas when the high texture package was released for Borderlands, everybody's like, "Do I have it installed? I can't tell." Because like the art style of Borderlands just doesn't lend itself to high texture.
Exactly.
But every art style in the world lends itself to better lighting. So
I would agree with that. I think the only real exception to that is something extreme like cell shading, right? But that's because that's actually a lighting artistic choice, right? As opposed to, well, it's not necessarily lighting, but it definitely manipulates lighting. So
absolutely.
But that's an extreme example, and that's one out of hundreds of different art styles. Right?
Exactly. So no matter what you
I would
think
definitely
about,
agree with that.
Like I don't care about graphics. I only care about art style. Trust me, lighting improvements is something you're going to be grateful for. So a couple things happened while I was talking.
That just goes back to what I said earlier, where you're trained from literally before you're born to figure out how light works and what looks correct and what isn't, right? So like
yes, exactly.
Irregardless of light style, accurate lighting makes you connect with it more because your eyes are there's no filter in your if the lighting is accurate, there's no filter in your brain going, oh, okay, well here's where the liberty was taken. And that happens regardless of whether you realize it or not. Even on a subconscious level, that'll happen. So you're 100% correct. Like if you improve the lighting regardless of the art style, it makes everything work better. So
exactly. 100%. So one of the things that happened while we were talking, that Johnny came in. I want to say hi to Johnny. How are you? It's good to see you again. I feel old remembering volumetric lighting used in Fear. And Doom is a good example.
Doom 3,
Doom is a really good. Well, Fear is like for those who don't know, actually, Fear is like in game history is actually a really important milestone in game development, and certainly like lighting and like things like impact, like the visual representation of impact are a really important part of Fear. Like minor destructible environments and stuff like that, I think was a big component of it. But like Fear is like one of the historic milestones in game AI as well. Like Fear is like people view it as just it's just like a horror inspired first person shooter, but it's
There's
like
a lot of games in that situation, unfortunately, where they were like the first to do something amazing and they're just met in terms of their sales or whatever.
Yeah, Fear is like an actual, like at the time, like was like a real masterpiece of game.
Oh yeah.
Hey Zeus,
Hi,
it's good to
Zeus.
see you.
Thanks for those, Lonnie.
So I'm sure we're gonna be talking about some tech stuff later, but Zippy, not only are you a tech guy, but you are a tech guy who streams on this wonderful platform.
Oh yes, I do sometimes at least.
So, I mean, you know, I feel like I know like a fair bit about you because I've seen your stream, and you know, you come into my stream and other streams that I watch. But I feel like I've only encountered you, like kind of recently. So, like, what's your story on Twitch? How did you stumble into this community exactly?
Okay, so what's funny is like if you click on my username, you're like, oh, this guy's been on Twitch since 2012. He's fucking ancient, you know, like all this stuff. What's funny is I created an account. I don't even remember exactly why, but Zeus subscribed.
Zeus.
Yeah,
Thank
Zeus,
you.
so Zeus, we usually have like alerts and stuff, but right before the stream, there were like issues with OBS, so it's very unprofessional because we don't have any alerts or anything else like camera
big
overlays and stuff. But yeah,
We
we appreciate it. Yeah.
We can still hype it up.
Yeah.
But sorry to continue the story.
Yeah.
I created an account in 2012. I think I did that in order to use Twitch to launch Minecraft mods. Was originally what I had done that for, and I used I watched Twitch on and off, but I never like got into Twitch. It was more of a, hey, here's this game coming out. You know, all of the reviews I can tell were like paid for or, you know, bullshit or whatever. And so I just want to watch someone play it for a little while. And I feel terrible because I was like watching like all these massive streamers that just like, you know, you're never going to get in their word in edgewise in their chat or anything like that, all that kind of stuff, right? But I wasn't there to like interact with the streamer. I was there to watch the game and be like, is this something that I would want or not? And it wasn't up until about, I guess about 2 years ago now, that I started playing Tarkov because a bunch of my friends here in Texas started playing Tarkov. They were like, hey, you know, come play this game. It's ridiculously detailed. It's, you know, insane. It's, you know, for gun nerds that have ADD. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let's check out this Tarkov thing, right? And I played and I got my ass handed to me like eight ways to Sunday. Just like couldn't play this game. And this was something new for me because I feel like I've always been. I would never say I'm a god at a video game because I'm not. I'm definitely a potato at like most FPSs and that kind of thing. So, but like, I wouldn't say I'm terrible either. So the fact that I was just like completely getting curb stomped constantly in Tarkov, I was just like, all right, I need to find somebody that I can watch and actually like learn this game from. And what ended up happening is I work second shift. I have to watch a late night streamer. I asked one of my buddies, I'm like, hey, who is playing Tarkov?
A late night Tarkov streamer.
You can all probably guess where this is going at this point. So I started watching Smoke, and that was like the first time that I actually like gave a shit about the person who was playing the game instead of just trying to get an idea about the game itself. And everything kind of snowballed from there. Pretty sure that's how I met, or how I came into Ash's stream. And then I started watching a bunch of other Tarkov people, started watching just a bunch of people in general after that, and it just kind of like there. So.
Right.
Oh my God, Zeus!
Zeus is going insane.
Oh
Zeus!
Zeus and everyone, thank you so
Zeus,
much.
thank you so much.
Gifting
Everybody,
5
we really
subs.
appreciate it.
This is when everyone does alert-based things.
Yeah. There's not a alert, not a single alert wrong. It's like a stealth game we're playing on easy mode.
But yeah, at that point I met, I think like 2 or 3 other streamers. They were kind of in a smaller community, and I was hanging out with them quite a bit. They made me a mod. That's how I started becoming like more interested in the platform itself, as opposed to just like just watching it to watch it, right?
Mm.
And it was only like a few months after I was a mod that I was like, I mean, I got a rig that's capable. I got, the only thing I would really need at this point is a webcam, and that's it. Like, I can do this.
Yeah.
So I did, and I started, and I've actually been pleasantly surprised at how well it's done, considering I'm just a dude on the internet that plays video games at, what I would consider roughly average skill level.
I feel like that's most people, to be fair.
I think that's a bit of Dunning. I think that might be a bit of like Dunning-Kruger effect. You're underestimating your skill, but you're on the weird side of Dunning-Kruger effect, where you're underestimating your skill because you know about games. Like, usually people are on the side of Dunning-Kruger effect, where like they overestimate their skill because they don't know the.
Well, it's just like, for me, like, there's a lot of games that I know I can do really well, and that's because I know the game, and I can just, I'm like, okay, well, I know where everything is, or I know the strategy or whatnot.
That's me in Bloodborne.
But, like, in terms of, like, multiplayer games, like, that's where the real test is, right? And I definitely get my ass kicked quite a lot. And, maybe I have a positive KD in most games, but I don't necessarily think that makes me good, right? Like,
it's interesting, yeah, how things have changed in like what is a skill based like it used to be when you and I were coming up in PC gaming, because you've been a PC gamer for a really long time, right? Probably as long or longer than I have. Like,
yeah.
What version of Counter-Strike did you play? That's how I'll know. But
I did play the original Counter-Strike. Not very much though. I never was into Counter-Strike, actually, funnily enough.
Were you into PUBG?
I did get into PUBG for quite a while, unfortunately. I got into it until I realized how flawed BR is as a game design concept, and then I decided that I was done with BRs in general. And BRs have hated me ever since, because every time someone drags me into one, like, all of my RNGesus that I get in other games, he just like, it's like, RNGesus, take the wheel, and he's like just sitting in the back seat buckling in, like, there's a cliff there. You're driving over the cliff there. I'm just like, okay, you're gonna give me. But no, like,
is better.
so
I get insane luck in. I this is kind of a weird concept. I know this isn't true, but I feel like I get insane luck in things like RPGs, in like certain like platformers like Smash Brothers. Like the hammer always drops onto the map next to me in Smash Brothers for some reason, right? Or like I'm playing an RPG. There's like a 1% chance for this enemy to drop this overpowered item. I get it like the third time or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Then I go play a BR like PUBG, and I loot like 6 buildings, and I walk out of there with a pistol and a shotgun, no armor, a backpack that can only hold a pack of chewing gum, and a prayer. And I go, all right, guys, I'm ready. And all my buddies have like ARs with like scopes and attachments and stuff. I'm like, yay! I looted half the town, and I found this pistol.
So what's your total
karmic imbalance there?
What's your total distance between like, because I'm a little unsure about the timeline. So what's your total distance between starting watching Twitch and streaming is like fairly large then? Oh yeah, I mean, like the very first time I watched Twitch was probably 5-6 years ago. So okay, yeah, you know, we're talking. And again, like it wasn't until like 2 years ago that I actually started watching Twitch as like what I would consider a normal Twitch viewer. Yes, yeah. You know, everything else than that was just like click on game category. Okay, well this guy's got 20,000 people in here. You know, he's going to be entertaining, right? And then they aren't, which is funny. They're either entertaining or good at that level. Like, when it's a popular streamer, they're entertaining. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. That's how you get noticed.
Sometimes I also notice that like if they're that big, which nothing against like people who have like really big audiences, but sometimes those guys also tend to get like really angry about stuff, and people like to go in just to see their reactions. Yeah.
That's what a lot of like montages.
Well, and that's why like
Hi, Andrew.
That's why like it took so long for me to actually become like a regular viewer. It was because that was like all I was watching, and it was only for me. It was like, okay, well, you know, Sea of Thieves, is this actually a game I want to play? You know, like that's
Sea of Thieves. I remember that starting out really bad.
Also, an important game for AI research, though.
That's like all I would do with Twitch is I would be like, here's game X or Y. I'm gonna go click on that category. I'm gonna go watch two or three different people play it for like 20 minutes, and decide whether or not this is a game for me. That's what Twitch was for me for a solid 3 or 4 years. It wasn't until I hit a game that I actually had trouble adapting to, which was Tarkov, that I actually spent enough time in any particular stream to be like, oh, well, this guy's funny, or this guy's, whatever, right? Like.
So now I imagine you look at streamers a lot different. Now the way you evaluate
Oh yeah,
is
completely
like
differently.
So what's the map exactly? It's Smoke to Ash and then Ash to Melly.
In terms of like for you guys, it would have been Smoke, then Ash, then I think it was Melly. Out of you four, I think it was Melly was the first one that Ash rated that I like started watching as well.
Yeah.
And then I think it was Morgan.
And then myself.
Yeah, and then through Morgan I met you, and I knew Trev obviously from Ash's channel because memes. So yeah, I mean like that's how I would say I met you guys. I met I also just like started watching a bunch of other Tarkov streamers and have met people from their various communities as well. So like I feel like I have like a decently cast net, but there's I don't know, there's a bunch of different people that I watch. And then like the other thing that's kind of funny about Twitch is like there's people you watch and hang out with, and then there's people you hang out with who happen to stream. It's kind of weird how like that happens, like like it's completely random too. Like there's times where it's like people that you fully don't expect. You're like, I love crack jokes in their chat, and then they're like, hey, come play games with me, and it's like, really? Like, I mean, sure, yeah, I'll come play games, but it's just, like, it's funny how that happens sometimes, because sometimes it's completely unexpected to me. I'm just like, oh.
I feel like sometimes, like, if you don't consider yourself a regular or something, it's like kind of odd, not a like left field for you, because it's just like, I didn't know we were on that level, but all right, like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's been a couple of different streams where it's like. And it's different for every stream as well too. Like there's some where it's like you show up 2 days in a row and they're like, hey, you want to come play games? Sure, whatever. There's other people where it's like you sit there for like a month and then that's when they're like, hey, do you want to come play games?
Yeah.
But like I don't know. For me, it always feels out of left field because it's like I'm just the guy that sits in your chat and makes asshole like meme comments. Why would you want to play games with me?
I'm so glad we finally get to play Overwatch the other night.
Oh yeah,
that was brilliant.
That was a lot of fun actually. I was surprised
that was his return after a long time.
That was at least a 6-month, if not a year, hiatus from Overwatch. Was coming.
Yeah. You mentioned that was like you had been playing. You're like, oh, the last time I played like was like this or something. I was like, I never even heard of that.
Yeah,
because I named some meta. And I was just like, what?
Trev asked me about Scattershot for Hanzo, and I was like, oh yeah, that was complete cancer. And he's like, oh, I never played when that was a thing. I was like, oh, it was complete cancer.
The thing you said about like making like random jokes in chat though, the thing is like in my chat, and I didn't know this was different than the way like you and I have like long form discussions.
Different, yeah, because like you always like bring up these like things that are like related to what's interesting to me, and so I'm always just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna pick his brain on what are his thoughts on this thing.
Right, yeah. And that's always cool, yeah.
That's something I've noticed a lot of people do though. Like there's people that I've seen, in the chats that I mod, and they act completely differently in those chats than they do in other chats. Like it's almost like an anonymity of the internet kind of thing, right? Like where you could kind of put on a different persona when you're in different people's chats and all that kind of stuff. But like I don't like to do that. I like to just try to like make the same jokes I make everywhere. A lot of my jokes though are kind of like spur of the moment based on the game or the streamer or something somebody said or whatnot though. So but like I try to keep the same style of humor because that's just who I am. Like I don't want to.
Yeah, you can't change it up too often.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to put on a different face into too many different chats, or people are going to be like, "Who the hell are you really?"
I used to do that a lot, and then like I would get people who'd come in like on the rare times I would stream. They're like, "Wait, what?" And they're like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "What? I'm the same dude."
I think the first time I dropped into other Ash's chat, and I just referred to you as Trev. Other Ash was like, "Who's Trev?" And I was like, "What?"
Oh yeah. I had
How have you been here for like a year and nobody knows your real name? I'm so
I am
confused.
I am proudly the second person in this community who started watching Airy, like after Trev did. And she always called him Breezy, and I was
Yeah.
like, what
Yep,
the
I remember
fuck?
that.
Like it was like
I can-
so confusing.
Because I think I was like what, the third person or something that like was just like sitting and watching her. Because Rory told me about her, and she just kept calling him Breezy. And I think for the long, like now she finally calls him Trev.
Mm.
But God, that was funny. Also,
Hey.
real quick, I would like to take just a second to shout out Andrew here because he is also a part of our wonderful stream team, True Variety.
That's
he just,
true.
He just started back up the other day, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I was so Andrew. I was real excited to see that you were streaming again because I started watching you. I guess so the first stream I watched of Andrew's was he was playing Devil May Cry. Andrew, when were you playing
Wait,
Devil
was
May
it
Cry?
was it Devil May Cry or was it God of War? Because I know
No, it
that
was
was.
Devil May Cry 1.
Oh, okay.
It
I was
Devil
gonna
May
say, I
Cry
was like, I
1.
know he was doing those two, and you were coming in for that, but
And yeah, and I don't know when that was, but I watched.
it wasn't years ago. God of
Probably
War,
felt
and
like years ago, but I started watching Twitch in December, so it can't be that long. But yeah, it was a long time ago. I think it was at the beginning of Andrew, or like the beginning of my Twitch thing, and then I watched him play like a bit of The Division and a bit of Bloodborne, and then he had that long hiatus, so I was really excited to see him.
I feel like Andrew and I were always kind of sort of playing
December-ish, January-ish, yeah.
the same games like simultaneously.
yeah, I think that's what it
That's-
was too. Because I remember you and Andrew were playing God of War at the same time because you were trying to.
I know,
beat
and
the
I was
Valkyrie
like,
Queen.
and I was amazed that he beat the Valkyrie Queen. Like, was it first or second try or something? It took me like 3 days, and I was like, "Oh my god, Andrew's a god."
The Andrew only shows
God
up
of
for
War.
streams when I'm. Oh my god.
He first tried the Valkyrie Queen. That's right.
When Andrew comes into my streams, it's always when I'm playing something super hard. Like he came in when I was playing Neo, so he watched me suck at Neo, and then he came in for like a really hard mission in Styx. When I was like, oh no, what have I done? Why did I start playing this? Like, and I was like, oh no, he's here again just to watch this.
Yeah, we actually met John. What is it? A week ago?
Yeah, we met John a week ago.
It was a
Yeah,
week
like in.
ago. How?
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
That was wonderful.
because it's Friday already. That was a week ago. Okay, so Gameology. I know you had a question in Rory's channel the other day, and we told you to write it down and
Yeah, I
save
think-
it for the. All right, Gameology, just go ahead and repost it, and we'll answer it here.
Yeah, we'll
Go for
address that.
Service providers? Like, what do you mean?
If I remember right, you meant like almost like an entertainer or something, right? Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what they are already, right? Like, it's more of a pay what you want to pay kind of thing for that. But that's actually the reason I stream. Like, for me, I was in theater since 6th grade all the way past college when I was in community theater while I was still working at IBM. The only reason I'm not still in theater is because I work second shift. So there's no community theater that is going to have a practice that's not right smack dab in the middle of my work shift.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
So-
24 hour, so it's good. It's easy.
Yeah.
Like that.
Exactly.
Yes,
I
exactly.
can do
You
this.
can do this
I can do this
anytime.
whenever. There's always somebody awake that's going to be watching me, and
Yeah,
like,
it's not like region based. It's like we get people like Crape. Crape's always up at like 6 a.m. his time, and like
Yeah,
he doesn't go to
exactly.
sleep,
Yeah,
so-
literally. Yeah,
We'll
it's
get
just,
TS
yeah.
rolling in here.
Well,
TS
one
is
of my-
8
a
a.m. his
monster. Yeah, yeah.
one of my regulars is like his bedtime is like 3 in the morning. So like he's in my stream almost all the time. Like the only time he isn't is unfortunately he lives in one of the few places in America that still has shitty internet. He literally can't. Like
Oh damn. Yeah, yeah.
you know,
We-
and I'm really grateful for him. He's like literally my most loyal regular. So like he's he's awesome, right? You know, like and he cracks as many jokes as I do. That's the other thing I love about having him there. But like the point is like, you know, there's always somebody, and that lets me get my inner like thespian out, and like I can be entertaining to people, and
That is 100%. Well, I know the Morgan has like a bit of theater background as well, and so does, and Melly has an entertainment background.
Just performer background.
Through music, a performance background. Do you guys find, like, I definitely find as well, as someone who is in broadcasting, like, this gives me that like expression fix of like being able to express myself in some way. Do you guys find the same thing?
Yes.
No, yeah, exactly, 100%. Like, it lets you just. I like being funny. I like making people laugh. I like making people smile. That's, you know, that's one of the things I've always enjoyed, even before I just theater as a medium to do that with. And this is just yet another medium for me to do that. And yeah, I know I crack a lot of jokes that probably fall flat, and a lot of my jokes are of the dad variety humor, if that makes sense. But
We have Andrew.
That's your
it's
art, that's
fine,
your
we're,
art.
you know, exactly.
We're used
so like,
to it.
people do it. Like, people laugh at that, and people are entertained by it. So that's where I am. That's what I do.
Well, see, and
I
like,
like-
that's how I feel with
Yeah.
like with like I love to do like accents and voices and everything, and like be like, so I play a lot of games where you need to read, and so like I always just feel like I need to read for the viewers anyways, and so being able to just put like a little bit of flair and fun into it, it makes it all the better for me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
yeah.
honest. That's like one of my favorite parts about Morgan streams is like how, like, I know I always joke in there about like 10 out of 10 voice acting, but I really feel that way about it, because I always look forward to that, and it is a performance. And it's
Just earlier today, she was playing
Morgan's so good at
Pokemon, and
voice
she was doing
acting,
like
yeah.
Scottish accents for the people.
Yeah.
And I asked, I was like, "Is this based in
love it.
Scotland?"
Loved it, yeah.
It's so funny. It's so enjoyable, and it
Yeah,
adds
and-
like such a unique like flair to what you do.
I
Yeah,
just
that's
love that
exactly
we-
true. So few other people do that, right? Like,
I just love that we're putting Rory up to it lately, and he's been doing the Newfie.
Oh yeah, the Newbie accent
It's
in
so
lore.
great.
That makes
Like,
me
I mean,
laugh.
who else out there is doing a Newfie accent on Twitch streaming?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, I took that gold mine from Tiff. She didn't know it was there. Swipe. Fucking gone now. It's mine.
You could have done this, but it's mine now.
It's like you were on here 2 years before I was, and I found this before you did.
yeah,
I
really
think
though.
for me, like with like music, because I don't write as much music nowadays as I used to, but I used to like write music and perform for people, and it like there is a lot
Something
of
I kind of recently learned about you, to be honest.
yeah, well, there's like a lot of creative overlap, so it's like Twitch is like a creative outlet for me, and it's, you know, and Twitch is very much like a shared experience. You know, that's what, like, we're all connecting with each other and enjoying the same thing. So like, you know, before it used to be we're getting together and listening to music or listening to someone's like original songs or something. It's a shared aesthetic experience, and now it's like games. So it's just like another way of enjoying a medium and connecting with people.
Exactly.
agree.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. Is like, I think Twitch, like, I think that this was another kind of factor in like my evolution from, you know, spotty viewer to regular viewer to mod to streamer and all that. But like another contributing factor there was like Twitch, and I think Ash even said this on the previous podcast. Like, Twitch is a lot different nowadays than it was previously. And I know she was talking specifically about trolls, I think, and how like.
Oh well,
Some of
yeah,
them
well,
are
in
actually-
every aspect, but yeah, I think that particular
Yeah.
time we were talking about trolling and like
Yeah.
how
Well,
weird
that's
people
just,
can
like,
be.
the whole thing. Like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
early Twitch was a lot more just like, oh, poggers, oh, good shot, oh, good.
Yeah, it was just like emo spam from what I heard. It was like,
Yeah, and like a lot of the channel, and even more so again in kind of the channels that I was visiting at the time, right? So I think that also kind of turned me off from it becoming a regular platform. But nowadays, like, I mean, you know, I've got, you know, my foot in like 3 or 4 different communities now that all regularly, you know, stop by and say hi in my stream. I stop by and say hi in their streams, and like all that kind of stuff. Like, it's
You must be in
changed.
hella Discord servers right now. That
Oh my god, so many discords. Like,
I think if there was
let
one
me
thing,
put it this way: when I got the pop up, the what's new pop up, I almost always just click out of it immediately because Discord never adds anything useful, right? Except there was one time it was like, "What's new? You can now sort your Discord servers in folders," and I was like,
Yeah, that was my reaction too. I was like,
I
all
just
right,
went on,
all
like,
of these on this list, I can
just
finally throw
this
into one.
massive list of servers, just
Oh.
like compressed it down into like 4 folders. Like, oh.
They that reminds me. I wanted to complain.
Yeah.
About Discord or
no.
something?
If we
So-
complain about Discord again, they're gonna like throttle us. That's what
Yeah.
That's what they did
Yeah,
the last
exactly.
time.
Yeah. They don't tolerate that kind of shit. No, I wanted to complain about Steam. for a second.
Oh, okay,
real
the new
quickly.
update, the new layout.
Yeah, so like here, I'm gonna toss this in our chat here. But it's only because I need the link to it. So I can drop it in the actual chat. Processing, okay. So let me drop it in the actual chat. So this is my Steam library, right?
Okay.
Now, I have it organized the way I like to have it, which is by genre. Okay? And it
Right.
would be fine if it weren't for the fact that the What's New shelf is at the very top. And the What's New shelf is the only shelf in the whole thing that's not removable.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that. Please change that. Okay? We need to get Discord to change the camera layout bullshit. And then we
Yes,
get
and then-
to change this. And then I can be happy again. Okay? So get on it.
I did notice though the What's New has changed from when they first launched it. Before, it felt like it was more advertising.
Mhm.
It was like game updates and usually ones around DLC.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now I feel like it's actually
I feel like they take it a step back.
just
from,
game
like,
updates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
They
not.
took it a
It's
step
not
back
like,
'cause everyone
oh,
was
we're
like,
shoving this
okay,
like buy
thanks
this
for
into
the-
your face. It's more of a like, oh, this is what's coming.
Yeah, this is what's coming and this is what just updated as opposed to like here's all this stuff that you should buy. Like
Trinsic, I don't want to
Hitman.
hear it.
I don't need that.
Hitman, the
Okay.
one game that Rory can't get to work.
Gameology had a very good follow-up.
Yeah, I was
It
just gonna
was,
get into this.
Yeah. What's the qualitative difference between like a stand-up comedian, a YouTube content creator, and a Twitch broadcaster? I think there's a lot going on there because I think part of it, besides like maybe for a YouTube content creator who is maybe also a live YouTuber, like kind of like what we do on Twitch. For a stand-up comedian, I think actually I'm gonna go into what their similarities would be, and like in which I mean, because like with a stand-up comedian, they can write out their scripts and they can figure out what they want to say, right? With everything that they want to say, but at the same time, when you're live, sometimes things just happen. You know, something in the crowd might happen in terms of a stand-up comedian. I think there was something about John Mulaney that I read about not that long ago, where he was just going on and on with like this I think it was like a college bit. And all of a sudden he just stops. And other people had heard this college bit all the way through and everything was fine. He just stops and he just looks and he just goes, "Have there been aluminum on my goddamn buttons this entire time?" Because apparently when he took his suit to be dry cleaned, they put aluminum foil on the buttons to protect them, and he didn't realize it until much later in his set. And like that's just one thing that I think is very interesting. I know you asked about the difference here, but in the
perfect example of that would be you're breathtaking. No, you're breathtaking.
Yeah, exactly.
So like in terms of a stand-up comedian, a live YouTuber, and a Twitch broadcaster who is also live, things just end up happening. And especially with like a Twitch broadcaster, where like yeah, maybe they have like a few things where they it's almost like a script where they just keep with like what they usually like to do. I think I'm gonna go with the similarities here in that all of them kind of have to go off of like what's happening in their chats or in their crowds. And that's
Or
how
your
they get
cat,
like
in my case.
their cat, yeah, or my cat. A very, very good
Or dog.
or dog, yeah. Those are good examples there. Fans.
We love Pepe.
Yeah, oh my god. But yeah, like they all have to like very quickly go off of everything that's happening with them. So like maybe like again like with a stand-up comedian, things don't always go exactly how they plan it, but it ends up kind of happening like maybe a little bit better in their set. That's at least what I find like in similarities too. But like with stand-up comedians and YouTubers who aren't live, they can at least do some sort of like scripting, and especially with YouTubers. I mean, with stand-up comedians, it's a little bit harder because they're out right there live in a crowd. It's kind of like having a play. You know, if you're in a play or a musical, and it's play night. Or I can't think right now. It's like the first night of the show, for example. You can't just sit there and go, alt line, I need my line. Can somebody give me my line? And completely mess it up, because that's just going to mess it up. At least with a YouTuber, like a not live YouTuber, if they mess something up on their video, they can reshoot it and they can edit things. And I think that's kind of like the difference between that. I find a stand-up comedian and a Twitch broadcaster could probably be more similar than
they're definitely
like
more similar than
Definitely.
YouTuber.
The thing about YouTube, it's a double-edged sword, the preparation, because you can do a lot more preparation and make things just the way you like it and edit out all the bad stuff. But the standard is also a lot different, right? Because people then expect the preparation, because once one person does it.
Yeah, then it's like there's a bar for everybody else now.
There's a bar for everybody else.
So-and-so
And the bar
did
at
this,
YouTube
and
production
you
is
didn't.
pretty high now.
I actually originally built / overbuilt my PC so that I could do YouTube. Before I ever even fancied the idea of becoming a streamer, I wanted to do YouTube. And you can actually still go look up Zippy DOS Pinhead on YouTube and see my very, very shitty attempts at being a YouTuber from like 5-6 years ago.
You didn't go all scorched earth on that like everyone else?
Oh, hell no. No, there is shitty Minecraft Let's Plays, there is clips of League of Legends, everything.
Oh, you have a lot of the like classics. Did you do any prank videos?
No, I did not do any prank
That would be
videos.
the other big one.
But no, you're 100% correct. YouTube is a double-edged sword. You can sit there and edit it down and pare it down to exactly what you want, or you can just throw it out there. But the problem with that is everybody expects that standard, right? So if you want to edit to that standard, I realize that to make 22 minutes of content on YouTube, like just 20-minute Minecraft episodes, it would take me like 3 hours between playing to get enough content and then cutting that content into a video and like trying to make a coherent story while showing like, yes, these are my objectives and this is the progress I made towards them in this 20-minute segment.
Yes.
And that would, it'd be 3 or 4 hours out of my day just to put up a 20-minute video, and then I work full time. I don't have that kind of time, right? I would rather just do what streaming is, which is, I have everything set up. All I have to do is press like 3 buttons, and maybe tweak where it's capturing the game from, and then I'm there. I'm done. I'm going. And I think I don't remember if it was Morgan or Rory that brought it up, but somebody was saying about when you're on a play, right? That actually. You triggered what my college director would say all the time, which is, on film, it'll cost you more money in that you have to buy more film, right? But you can do it until you get what you need. Versus a play is, you have to do it right, you have to do it right in the moment, and you have to do it like that way so many times. So I think with stand-up comedians, you have to have adaptability so that you can play off of your audience, and if your audience throws something your way, you can, work with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, it's also valid that that's kind of prepared. Like, they have a script, they have a series of jokes that they want to get through, and it's really like those adaptability moments only come in, maybe 2 or 3 times over the course of their whole spiel, right? Versus like a Twitch streamer is more, I would say, like doing an improv show.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is unprompted. Literally everything is unprompted. You're coming up with, responses to what people are asking you on the spot. You're coming up with jokes for what people are telling you on the spot. And then I think, YouTube is the exact opposite end of that spectrum. you're literally editing the video to put together a rhythm of jokes that you want. You know, like if the goal is to be funny in all three cases, that's what I'm trying to get at.
That's a
here.
very
But, like,
good. That's a very good example because like if like when you're making jokes and everything like on YouTube, like to edit everything together, you could go through your footage and be like, that joke wasn't very funny. I'm not going to let anybody see that.
Or
But
you
when
could
you're live
even
on-
test screen it with your friends.
Mhm.
You could even be like, hey, watch this, let me know what
Yeah.
works and what isn't. And then they can edit that down even further.
Exactly.
just-
Versus
It's like there's varying levels of like structure and precision, I think, between all three of those. Like with YouTube being the most structured and precise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with
Controlled.
Twitch streaming being definitely the least structured, I would say.
Right.
like versus on Twitch, yeah, like if you make a bad joke, like you can be like a and maybe no.
And
You
then
know,
you still lose,
hey.
you still lose half the people.
That's when it
This
gets
guy's
clipped and
an
everyone's
asshole
just like,
and
look at
just-
this shitty joke. Like, what?
The thing about Twitch is like the thing I really liked about Twitch is it's so like self-adjusting. Like, well, one thing like if you're like on YouTube, for instance, not every video is going to meet any sort of production standard, right? That you throw up, right? You can make a really poorly produced video on Twitch.
Right.
If you're streaming, you already meet the minimum production standard.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right?
Like,
So
Yeah.
if you're even on the platform at all doing anything, you've already hit that. That's a plus. But like,
yeah, I think that's the funniest thing too. Like everyone always asks, like, well, how do I get started on Twitch? You
Like, one, make
yeah,
an
do
account.
it.
Twitch
Do
is
have
the
a
one thing in
computer.
the world that you just literally start. And
Yeah,
I
you-
honestly-
you press the button. It doesn't matter if you are the shittiest streamer in the universe. Somebody will watch you, and you'll learn how to be better. Like it's not. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know. It's not.
I feel like it's a lot. It does feel like a little bit easier sometimes on Twitch because now it's not like I do much of going on to like live YouTube, like you know, like when people are doing like live games, like live streaming on YouTube.
Right.
But at least like one of the good things about like if you want to get started up on like as a streamer, it's so easy to go into somebody's stream, you know, and start talking to people and start being regular in there. Like this wasn't even when I was streaming, but like when I started modding, even before I started modding for Tracy Doll, and like for Melly, for example, like I had people just following me, you know, like I think I had like 25 followers when I actually started streaming. And that
Yeah,
was just because like I would sit and I would interact with people, and sometimes people just be like, I'm just gonna follow you.
yeah. No, that was the case for me. I had like 2 or 3 people that were just real life friends who followed me for whatever reason, right? And then I think I had like another 10 or 15 of just people I knew through Twitch. Like I've never met these people that were already following me. But like I think I had like 15 to 20 somewhere in that area when I first actually started, and I was like, this is okay. Well, all right, you know.
yeah,
Like, I didn't
exactly.
realize that yada yada had followed me, but yeah, they already did before I ever hit the button. Like,
That's how our experience went with Rory too, because he was
Yeah.
like planning on doing it, and then a lot of us in the shop were just like, all right, well, we'll follow you. Like,
Yeah, I had a very rushed Twitch experience where I was playing on TIFF stream a month after I started using Twitch, and then I was streaming myself 3 months after that. Like it was like very like abbreviated.
I would say I had an accelerated experience once I hit the button the first time.
Yeah,
because
exactly. Yeah.
I had like a lot of people from this community that rated me on the regular. So first off, thank you guys for that, because I think all of you guys did at some point. So thank you. And then I also had like people from kind of like some of the Tarkov communities that I hang out in that were just like, oh, I know this guy. He cracks jokes in my chat. Here you go, raid. And it was just like, to me it was insane, like how just me being me in chats as led to all these people that were like, I've never seen this guy stream, but I've seen him crack jokes. We're gonna go say hi. Like
Yeah.
that's really
absolutely.
cool in my opinion. It's one of the cool things about Twitch. It's
There
just
are
like
those,
how the
like,
community building actually happens. Like
there are those surprises where like someone is like people find someone a certain way in chat and they find someone a certain way like when they talk to them. Like Trev is like the example people often use. Like they find Trev a certain way in chat and then they finally talk to him and they're surprised. Me less so. Like I've always like
Well,
Like, I've
I
always
think
felt
it's
like I
because
kinda understood
when
the
I
way
started
Trev
talking
was,
to you,
like-
it was like we were playing games, and it wasn't
Yeah, like,
just
right
your,
away. Yeah,
your
exactly,
experience
yeah.
in chat. But
So-
for a lot of other people, it was-
so when I see Trev type something, like I can imagine him like and his voice saying the thing, right? So like it's a different perspective. But like I feel like you can get a feel for someone's personality from chat and like whether they're like
Oh,
whether
yeah.
they're gonna be like cool or not.
Oh yeah, and I think
the,
like having that sense is what like led certain people to make me a mod. Is that they could tell that I could like the mod senses are tingling kind of thing, you know. So I think that that's 100% true. Like you can generally tell within the first 2 or 3 things that somebody types, is this person going to be a troll? Do I need to worry about like being ready to ban them?
Yes.
Or is this
Oh,
person
my
just
senses
joking
on that
around
are
and,
like super honed. Like
Travis-
well, yeah,
I call them out
you're in
immediately.
Way more channels than I am in terms of like having mod powers.
Yeah,
But I think it's funny, like you get a sense for things, and then like the robots. Like I know like 3 or 4 different scripted robots on Twitch now, and I can just
We've
like,
seen a
they're
lot
good.
of
the
those.
Yeah,
very
they're great.
first
They're
time
very
they
convincing.
speak in chat, it's like, oh, I know
They-
you die.
I think the first one we saw
remember
those
one
were
ti-
in Melissa's, when it was like,
Yeah.
hey, like I'm gonna make
I
you
was
these
like, you're gonna
panels. And
copy
like,
paste
okay,
the stream title next.
They,
I think I remember-
Later.
I think I remember Zippy. I want to say both of us were talking in Rory's chat, and you were like, "Wait, don't do it yet. Don't ban him yet. I want to see."
I want to
Yeah.
see if it's right.
I've always said that I thought like I've always like thought Morgan was like really cool and like chat like talking to her. I was like I always tell I like get along with this person. It's obviously very true, but like now in hindsight, but definitely at the time, I was always a fan of Morgan's.
Aww.
You two are too cute.
so before we stray too far
Rainbows.
from what Gameology asked earlier, I was just gonna say that I feel like all 3 things are similar, but in the same like sense different. So I'm gonna use a lot of Overwatch examples here, and apologize for anyone in chat who doesn't know anything about Overwatch. But I would say
AKA Zeus.
I would say that Twitch streaming is kind of like a Genji aspect, where it's like you can play the hero, but like to necessarily there's a high skill ceiling cap to where there's differences between playing the hero and then being really good at the hero.
Yeah,
So, like,
definitely.
Stream on Twitch is, yes, it's very easy to get started, where all you gotta do is own a computer, a PS4, and an Xbox, because they're all built in now.
Yep.
But if you want to get it to the point where you're sitting there and like you're like a pro, quote unquote pro, where you have like fancy transitions, fancy overlays, fancy this and that, it takes a lot of like
It takes
time. Yeah, because like just yesterday, after we stopped playing Overwatch, I spent like 4 hours creating these really basic camera overlays for like the animate and do all these light effects and everything. And that took me almost like 4 hours just to go from Photoshop to After Effects and then like out to Premiere just to export.
And that's just like you as like having to deal with it kind of like time too.
Yeah.
Like you start talking about like to kind of like, I know this is kind of reaching back a little bit, like, but like if you talk about like Pixar, for instance, like to do a single frame of that, they get done with all of the artwork, they get done with all the positioning, the lighting, all that kind of stuff, and then they send it off to render, and they wait like 7 hours to get one frame back. Like, it's kind of insane. Like the amount of time put into it is insane.
Yeah, I mean, thank God I'm not out here doing that. But.
Like, yeah, I know that's kind of a side tangent, but like that.
And then I feel like
People don't appreciate the time put into those kind of things. I don't think. Like,
I feel like
especially when you're talking about streaming.
YouTube is more like if you're like playing a 2-star hero, so like someone like Tracer, where they're like you understand what you're supposed to do with them, but like again to be good, it's like it's not as high of a skill count, but there's still some sort of skill ceiling. Because with YouTube, you can do the live thing now. You can do pre-recorded videos, which is what a lot of people do, and then they do like montages, which we were all talking about. Like if you want to get content for 20 minutes, that's at least 3 or more hours of like playing and just cutting it up into different segments.
Yep.
So there's that, and then there's other aspects where it's like, oh, you have to have a kind of like a scripted idea. Like you have to think not like a movie producer or anything, but like where you like see the scenes by scene, like seeing what's gonna happen and you know what's gonna happen and what you want to put in. And then I think so I'm not a stand-up comedian or anything, but and I don't know if anyone in chat is, but I feel like
No, they're
I feel
not.
like we would know that, but yeah. I feel like that's actually probably the easier one of the two because it's all based on a live audience, and then like it's essentially just you reading like stuff you wrote down beforehand. Like I don't think I know anyone who goes out and just randomly starts telling jokes like no prep ever. Like
No, that's
it's-
how you get booed off stage.
yeah, that's exactly that's how you boot off stage. So that's like being a live comedian is kind of like the bastion aspect of these forms of entertainment, where it's like anyone can do it because you just like sit in turret form, just shoot everything, and like it's not gonna matter because like you have all this material written down, so it's not like you're gonna lose it or anything. But like with streaming and like YouTube stuff, you can be totally doing stuff on YouTube and streaming like on Twitch and mean to bring something out, but then completely forget about it, and then like halfway, like an hour later, it'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot I was supposed to do this.
You know what YouTube's biggest problem is for me? Is that if you look at the recommended on Twitch, it's channels, and if you look at the recommended on YouTube, it's videos.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like totally counterintuitive to the way I consume content.
Well,
It's
and not
like-
only that, but it's not helpful for your content creators, right? Like YouTube.
Yes. Yeah.
YouTube is already in enough hot water with their content creators with how they're handling advertising and DMCA's and all sorts of stuff like that.
Mhm.
But that's neither here nor there. Like the point you're making is that they'll recommend an individual video. You'll go watch that video and you're like, "Oh, I like this video," and you put a like on it, and then you move on.
Yeah.
Versus like what they should be encouraging, because this is both good for the content creator and for YouTube, is like, oh, you click on this individual video and you enjoyed it, so you click like and it goes, hey, would you like to subscribe to this content creator? Or hey, here's some more videos from this content creator, see if you like them as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of that like encouragement on the platform level for YouTube.
Exactly.
And because of that, like you might find a content creator that you really, really love, and you'll just completely miss them because you only ever watch that one video that YouTube tells you you'll like.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, like, what if I actually enjoy the person from that video as opposed to just like, oh, this was a funny joke.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. There was an interesting one. This isn't really related to anything. I mean, it's related to, but like, so you need a bit of lore, tiny bit of lore. So I have
Rory lore.
Oh,
We got
I have a
Lore
friend
time.
who, like,
thirds of a podcast before he
who
said
like
lore.
specializes. So my friend, he specializes in like opinions that, like, not troll
Is it
opinions that
Decker?
are designed to make people angry. No.
Oh, okay.
But like my friend's genuine opinions make people angry. They're just, you know what? They're bad takes. That's all it is. Right? They're weird and like, and Morgan knows exactly what I'm talking about. And
Do I know exactly who you're talking about?
yeah. You do,
Sure I
and
do.
I always give him shit for like the bizarre stuff that he says, and like so one of his things is he told me this the other day. So apparently you used to be able to rewind live videos on YouTube, and now what it is you can do that only by content creator. The content creator has to turn that feature on or off. And he said, that sucks because rewinding live YouTube videos is the reason I prefer YouTube to Twitch, which is like a bananas opinion, right? Preferring YouTube live streaming to Twitch is like, I know I'm like preaching to the choir here, like, 'cause, like we're on Twitch,
Yeah.
but like that's like no one
But
has that
he raises a
opinion.
good point. Like, you can kind of do that on Twitch, but you have to like, they have to have VODs enabled, right? And then you can't actually get caught up to live either. It's always like
Yes.
the last few minutes are cut off and all that kind of stuff. So like, it's possible on Twitch, but it's finicky.
Mm.
And I think that is something that people kind of want / need, because, you know, they might. Personally, I don't care. Like, the people are live. If I have to like get up and go to the bathroom, or I have to like go, you know, switch my laundry or whatever. I missed 5 minutes. You know, that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
live performance, whatever, right? Like,
Well, because the whole point of it is that it's
Not a
live.
big
If you
deal.
go
What's
to
your
a play,
question, Andrew? What's Andrew's question that's in all caps
What?
and is no punctuation?
What
but that is like the whole point of it being live, because it's like you can't go to a play or like to a movie.
Yeah, and be like,
You know,
oh,
like,
okay, I
that's,
missed
like,
that.
in
Can you go
theaters.
back? Like, that's
Exactly.
not how it
Like,
works.
let me just pause this real quick. Like that is the whole point of the live experience.
but some
But,
people some people really like that option. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
like the idea of, oh, I can pause the stream and then I can go to the bathroom and then I can just play it at like 1.5 speed or whatever and then catch up. And like, I think that this is a platform that just because of the technology involved could very easily allow for that kind of thing to happen. Personally, I don't care either way, whatever, but like I could see the demand for that is basically what I'm getting at. So
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But yeah, it was an interesting, just like an interesting side. And also, a feature I didn't know YouTube Live had, and I didn't know there was a whole community behind YouTube Live, but apparently there is.
yeah,
And they signed a man who plays games that I've never heard of, but he exists. He exists. I looked him up.
I think it's
uh,
funny because they started that like 2 or 3 years ago and they had a big push back then, and now they're doing another push after it kind of already died.
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, they had Google Video, right? At one point, if you remember back in the early days of YouTube, when there was also Google Video, that was like, it wasn't a competitor, because like what? Like Google Video was a tragedy, right? And they're just like, all right, buy YouTube.
You know what else they had back in the day? And I only know this because Trinsic reminded me, but remember that time when they tried to push Google Plus and then like
Yeah.
Oh man.
I do remember that,
Oh,
actually. Yeah, and
now there's
My brother
Disney
was a
Plus,
huge
and it's
Google
just like
Plus.
Who here had
Yeah,
Google
wow.
Plus?
I made one. Well, I had one.
I think I did. To
I
be honest.
I had one because I had a Google account.
See, so technically I think I had one, but I never, ever.
That was already at
Never
the point
used
where I
it.
kind of
No.
didn't give a crap about it either, though. Brother was the one who was kind of like, "Oh, Google Plus is going to be the next big thing." And like,
Was it
so I
though?
signed up to like keep track of my brother, and then we never used it because both of us were just kind of over social media in general.
Well, like,
at that point.
The thing is, like, Google, like, people don't realize, like Google does a lot of great things, and they're like a wonderful research company and all that. But like, and the Google ecosystem
But
is,
they
is
are the
truly
biggest
useful.
data miners in the entire planet at the same
There's
time.
that, but they also like there's a lot of Google projects that just don't go anywhere, and that's inevitable when you try that many different things, right? Like, not everything is going to be that gold mine, but like, I wait to jump on new Google ideas.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They,
Give them a solid year to decide whether they're gonna go the way of Fox television programming. We'll put it that way.
yeah,
i.e.
exactly.
getting axed before the first season.
Google Glass. Google Glass is a great example, right?
Yeah, whatever
The,
happened to Google Glass?
Apparently, I thought that was
They
still
failed.
a thing, and they just like kind of gave up on it, but it's still a thing. It's one of the weird ones that's lingering. I thought.
Yeah, I think there was actually like that was like an extraneous problem that wasn't on them. There was some other obstacle behind Google Glass, as I recall.
Well, you know what's
Um,
funny? They actually have a thing called they have
Triscuit.
they have Amazon glasses now,
Oh.
and I was just like,
Uh,
what? Like, I work for Amazon.
And-
I
oh, they
didn't know
have
had
Amazon,
it,
yeah.
and I was like, what? Like,
That's that is really interesting, actually. The I can't wait to see what happens to the Google Stadia, like which Google direction it falls on. Like, does
I'm
everybody use
excited
it,
about
or does
that.
it go the
I'm
other way?
excited about that, but at the same
Well,
time,
you
very
would be, right? The because
Yes,
it's like
yeah.
it's a topic that you're very interested in as well.
Oh,
not
yes,
just a
yes.
service you might be interested in.
Oh yes,
Um,
yes. That's like, I don't work at Google, but that is a direct extension of my day-to-day job. Is
Yeah,
here's a gaming platform run on the cloud. My whole
Oh,
job
yeah,
is the
true.
cloud. So.
Yeah, I'm more interested. I'm interested exclusively in it from a technological side. I'm like,
Yeah,
this is a service
exactly,
that
yeah.
built to me as a customer, but I'm really excited to see how it goes and how well it works.
Yes, because what they're claiming is like 4K up to 60 FPS, even if you have a potato.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, they do put the
interesting.
caveat that it's, dependent on your internet speed, which makes sense because it is, but
Mm.
I'm more interested in, okay, I don't care if you can deliver me 4K. What I'm interested in is the claim they have at the end of all their advertisements, which is basically zero latency.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
What is the input lag going to be, and how are they going to mitigate that? That's the technological stuff I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've figured out how to compress video fairly efficiently for almost 15 years now, and of course compression keeps getting better and better. But
There's a whole
know.
sitcom about it.
yeah, but I mean, like my whole point about
This
we know how to do video. We know how to do video is my point. What we don't know how to do is how to take your mouse click from right here and have it mean that the game character that's actually being simulated by a separate computer thousands of miles, or well, probably just hundreds in Google's case, but like, you know, a significant enough distance to introduce lag, right?
Hmm.
How are they going to take this and deal with that when the computer that's actually running the game is miles and miles away, right?
Yes,
How is
yeah.
this going to feel crisp and clean and, you know, how it should to a gamer as opposed to like,
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, people don't realize,
how
like,
are they going to do that?
you notice,
I want to
like,
know.
even if you don't think, like, oh, you think, like, I'm not, like, someone who's picky about, like, frame rates and stuff like that. You have human eyes,
Mhm.
and you have a, like, built-in sense of tempo. Like, you do feel latency. Like whether you're picky or not picky, like that's just part of like the human experience. There's some kind of like what we were talking about earlier with like the lighting, and like even if you don't care about like graphics, like you probably should care about lighting because it will affect your experience.
Exactly, yeah. No, it's true. Like if you're let's say you're playing an FPS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this would be something that you could maybe work around with. If you can have stable latency, that's completely different than unstable latency as well.
Mhm.
If you're clicking and it takes, you know, a tenth of a second every time you click to watch the person on your screen shoot the gun,
Mhm.
you will, over time, playing that game, as long as it's always a tenth of a second, right? You will, over time, get used to that, be able to deal with it, still be able to land shots and make headshots and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm.
It'll still feel wrong, but it's doable.
Yeah.
What would be worse is if that is like on a floating scale from a tenth of a second to a half second. You will never be
Yes.
able to predict what that's like, and therefore you will feel like you're a potato, even though it's not actually you that's being the potato in that particular
Yes.
case.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like they can get away with it if they can make it stable and low enough, because that's the other thing. If it's too much of a time gap, it doesn't matter if that time gap is the same every time. If it's like a half a second every time, it's
Mhm.
still gonna feel like crap to the player, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So-
I think at most points, when people experience stuff like that with like input lying, it's just like unplayable for them.
And that's what I'm saying is like it has to be both low enough and it has to be consistent enough. It doesn't matter if they can get it micro low if it's still got enough variation in what it is. It'll still feel like crap to the people playing. Especially in like high precision games like FPSs or platform fighters or you know things where every frame matters. That's where
Fighting games too. 'cause-
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Fighting
Yeah,
games
that's
is
what-
literally like
Exactly,
it's
yeah,
the unit of study in how to learn how to play them is frame data. And and it's a big talk in FPS, of course. So if you guys, Zippy, have you seen the trailer for Project A, the new Riot
No, I
Games
have not. No.
shooter? Well, they dedicate a substantial portion of the couple minutes they spent talking about it to talking about latency, actually. In a trailer.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
It's like the abilities of a hero shooter mixed with like the precision of a shooter like Counter-Strike.
Interesting, okay.
It looks like the idea, like I don't know how many people that's going to appeal to, but I'll give it a try, but depending on cost.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That sounds
do you-
interesting to me.
Hitboxes to practice fighting games. I've only used a stick and a pad and a keyboard, but I've never used a I have used a proper hitbox, but I don't like them because of the way they input quarter circles.
So one
And-
of the things. Oh no, go ahead, Rory. finish
No,
up.
no, no. I was just gonna say and half circle and any circle like criteria motion. But go ahead, Morgan.
So, I was just gonna ask, just to get on, because I don't think we've asked this tonight, and usually we try to ask this to every guest. Now this is such a broad. This could have such a broad answer, and everybody always has like differing opinions on things. So, you can say like what this would be at the moment if you can't really think of the answer, because it's understandable. But we usually like to ask like, what is your favorite game?
Ooh.
And like I said, it can be so difficult because sometimes you have a favorite game at the moment, or
If it
just a
helps,
game
you can
always
you
go
can
back
do
to.
all time, you can do current, and then you can do like
Exactly.
recent.
So of recent games, I would say Death Stranding.
You put like
the-
87 hours into that already, right? You said.
Yeah, something insane like that. I think when I beat the game, it gives you like a stats readout because Kojima likes to do that, and I'm pretty sure it said 86 or 87 in like 15 minutes or something like that.
Oh my god.
I don't remember if it was 86 or 87, but it was 2 work weeks worth of time into that game. So that is my arc. That is to Trev what arc is Death Stranding is to Zippy. But yeah, so I would say Death Stranding, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I know there's people here that want to play it and haven't had a chance to yet. All I will say is it is definitely Kojima, in that there's an insane level of detail in the most weird places sometimes. But it is also definitely not Metal Gear, and I think that is actually the source of the mixed reviews on that game, is that people were expecting an action game like Metal Gear is, and they didn't get that, and because of that, they didn't like it. But yeah.
Despite the fact that Kojima has been saying for
The
really
entire
long-
development of the game that it would
That it-
not be an action game and it would be a Metal Gear game. Yeah.
But why would people listen? Because that's
And
not-
yes, Trinsic, I did already beat it. So.
So
But in terms of all time,
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to go with Homeworld. And I know that that's not like a super popular game series.
I don't actually know what that game is. So
It's a 3D space RTS, and it was groundbreaking at the time that it came out, which was I think 95 or 96.
okay, that's why.
And it is the first game that I ever played that the story and the gameplay were directly tied. And the way that was because it was an RTS, right? So you've got a bunch of units, but it had this, at least for the time, unique feature where whatever units survived the end of whatever mission you were on was your starting army the next mission. So you actually gave a shit about your units. Like if you beat a mission, but you like lost like half your fleet doing it because you weren't micromanaging effectively or whatever, that felt like a loss. Even though you were able to move on to the next part of the campaign, it felt like a loss because you're starting that next mission like down men, so to speak. And like it's yes, and the soundtrack, yes, oh my god, Homeworld had
it
like,
it kind of
made
sounds like a predecessor
orchestral
to
score and, like, yeah.
what you call it,
It-
StarCraft or something like.
Kind of, but like StarCraft is all 2D. Like,
Oh,
yes, the
okay,
graphics
yeah.
are 3D, but like in Homeworld, you could literally dive on the Z-axis down or up, and then like flank from.
Is
that
it more
direction.
like Sins of a Solar Empire kind of?
Kind of, and
Like-
I believe the developers for Sins actually said that Homeworld was one of their main. I'm almost positive that was something that was said during the development of Sins.
Right. Yeah.
So
I
Uh,
I own it, but I've never played Homeworld.
I would highly. I love it. Just even if you don't like RTSs, the story is amazing at Homeworld. It's got like this great like space opera epic kind of scale to it. So,
Okay. Yeah.
but yeah, I would say Homeworld is probably my all-time favorite, and that's both a nostalgia thing. The game itself was a technical achievement for its time, both in like graphics, storytelling. Like it hit the triangle of gaming, right? Graphics, story, playing, and gameplay.
Yeah.
And it had new ideas for all three of those areas, and it killed it in all three of those areas, at least for a game from the mid 90s, right? It looks like shit today. I will completely admit that at least graphically it looks like shit today, but that's why they did a remaster, because it was so good and it had such a cult following that Gearbox, when they picked up the rights for it, were like, well, fuck it, let's remaster this. So they redid it with modern graphics, and it looks amazing as well. I think they did a great job on the remaster. So, but yeah.
So, another question I would have. I mean, this could be like the same answer. Because like for me, I tend to like just feel, you know, as a gamer, I think everybody has like a time where they just feel like playing a certain game for some reason. Like I've played not even all the way through multiple times, but I've played like Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door, Uncharted 4, and Kingdom Hearts 2 in particular, bunches of times just because I feel like playing them. Do you have any games that you kind of just tend to go back to just when you feel like playing a game?
Oh yeah, there's quite a few. Halo, the whole Halo series always holds a close place in my heart because not only was it a lot of like my first hardcore game experiences, because my parents didn't let me buy a game console. The first game console I had was an original Xbox, and the only reason I had it was because you remember in middle and high school when they would give you those like shitty mail order magazines when you were like fundraising for your school trip or whatever, and they were like, hey, go sell these knickknacks to people you know in your small town in Iowa, and like, you know, try to convince them to part with their money to help you pay for your, right? Well, I went ham on that, and I needed to sell 125. I sold 136 items to basically my neighbors, and my mom was like, oh, you should take the like $175 cash prize and use that for spending money on your trip. I'm like, no, I'm getting the Xbox, because otherwise you're never going to let me get into video games ever. Because she wouldn't even let me spend my own money from my job. Like, I worked part-time as like a dishwasher at the time, right? Because I was in high school. But like, she wouldn't even let me use money from my own job after I showed I was responsible enough to save the $300-400 it was to buy a game console. She was like, no, you still can't buy one. So I had to go sell all these items, basically pay for my entire 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C. just through this fundraiser before she was like, okay, I guess you can handle having a video game console. So Halo is one of those games. Long story short, Halo is one of those games because that was like one of my first experiences where not only did I actually get to play the game, but I got to play it with a lot of friends. And Halo still holds a good place in my heart because it's still something that my sister calls me up like once a month and is just like, I'm having a bad day, let's go play Halo together. And then we play Halo together. She rants at me, I rant at her. We have a heart. We're sitting there shooting aliens. Like, so Halo is always going to be.
So I assume you're super pumped for the remakes.
Oh my god, yes! I get to play Halo with a mouse and keyboard. Totally did when Halo 1 came to PC, but now I get to do it with all the Halos, including Reach, which I haven't played since like it came out. Essentially, Reach was one of my favorites. I'm so excited.
I actually have a fan theory that the reason I hate the battle rifle is because I don't like using it on the controller.
That very well could be the case. Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's not actually. I feel like it's effective. I was just like, wow, I hate this.
Thanks, I hate it.
So my fear is that like when I play the remasters, because I never owned an Xbox or any like console to play. The only time I played them was like at my cousin's house whenever like we were like staying over or something. So my total playtime in Halo and like all of Halo is probably like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I think my fear is that like because I know it's got such an impact on people that like I'll get it, play it, and then like not feel the same way that
like,
and I'll just be like this is is all right, like and then everyone's just gonna be super disappointed and like attack me like yo whoa.
Well, and I think like it's almost not fair to you, Trev, right? Because like the thing is like Halo 1 is very groundbreaking for its time.
Yeah, extremely.
But that's almost a decade and a half ago. Like,
yeah, true. Trying to
gaming
like,
as an industry
get
has
that
moved
first
on.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
10
and
years
I think part
later,
of it was the
it's not
experience
gonna
of
be the
playing online
same.
on the console, which Halo really was a big part of, like pushing.
Oh yeah.
And that like to like who like that's not like Trev's been able to play online on the console probably his whole life.
It's,
You know?
Yeah. Like, yeah. That was
for a good part of it,
Halo,
yes.
Halo 1 doesn't have Xbox Live capability.
No.
Halo
that's-
1 was LAN parties only.
Yeah.
And like then you get to Halo 2, and Halo 2 is like, oh yeah, you can play this on Xbox Live. You could play with people all around the world, and that was huge for
That
consoles.
was massive. Yeah.
Absolutely, like Halo 2 was one of the first like massive games on Xbox Live.
Yeah, and it
And
was.
then- Then you had
PlayStation
Halo
was
3
technically
on the
first to
360,
online,
and
but it
just
was not
crazy,
the same.
you know. Yeah, exactly.
The
And so I think Halo really is one of the series that ushered in the era of console online gaming.
yeah, hugely. Tony, I didn't actually play Halo Combat Evolved until the PC port. I want to say the PC port was pretty soon after release for the first Halo, right? Because Halo 1 has always had a PC version, right?
No, I think it was a little while afterwards.
Was it a little
They-
while? How long was it?
they-
Who knows?
They advertised the original Halo as only on Xbox. Remember that?
Yeah,
and I
no,
think
I
it
don't think
was-
it was the whole time, but I want to say
I think it was
It-
only slightly before Halo 2 that it released. on
2003. 2003. So 2 years after the release of the original.
PC. Okay, yeah. And then Halo 2 was what, 2006?
Yeah, that's no, because I want to say it was 2005. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
No,
I think
yeah,
that was
because Halo 3 was still when I was in high school. So it would've
2004 Halo 2.
Yeah,
Because
okay,
remember,
yeah.
because there was the Xbox 360, and then there was immediate hype for Halo 3, and the Xbox 360 came out in 2006.
been- Yes,
Um,
okay, yeah.
Around the same time, and because I remember, because like Oblivion wasn't a launch title for it, I don't think, but it was close to a launch title. Like the first version of Oblivion, and Oblivion came out a year later on PS3, I think, 2007. No, wait, hold up. Xbox 360 launched in 2005. Sorry, Oblivion came out in 2006, and then the PS3 came out that year as well.
I'm
fixed
sure I will be streaming Halo, by the way, Johnny.
Yeah,
at some
I
point.
know Rory is going to go through it with Tater, and then I'm supposed
I
to
am,
play
but
it
I'm not
with-
streaming it.
I'm supposed to play it with Tiff.
What? Come on, Rory. Go on, Rory.
I've never played Halo, so
Yeah, see, I feel like because I'm
Fix
assuming
that problem, Melly.
I have 2 or 3 friends that have already been like, I've never played Halo. You're gonna be my co-op partner first ever playthrough, and I'm like, oh god, I have to sit here and not give any spoilers for these storylines that I've played through literally countless times.
Play the first one on Legendary.
Oh yeah. You don't want to play. The second one is actually the worst on
it's
Legendary.
just like you telling me to play Alien Isolation on hard.
Okay, hold up. I'm not taking the blame for Tater's nonsense here right now. Okay, no. I
Only
did that.
10%
Okay.
of the blame. 10%
Here's
of the
why.
blame.
Here's what happens.
10%
Okay,
of the
here's what happens inevitably in every one of people's streams. Right? Tater always recommends a difficulty that will challenge them. I always recommend the difficulty that comes recommended with the game. So like people tell you to play certain games on certain difficulties, right? Like developers will say like this is the true difficulty, right?
Yeah.
Quote unquote. Whereas Tater's just like whatever the one that's gonna make you hate everything is, play it on that.
It's
Go
he always
as
likes
far
to bring
right
the
as
dude.
possible,
He's true to
and then
form.
you can,
Yeah, he's
That's
true to
very
form.
true.
That's true.
Home Run.
The I think we've sort of preempted my next question to you, Zippy, in a way, but what I wanted to know what things you're excited about playing in the near future. I guess obviously Halo on PC is one of the big ones. Is there anything else that like Star Wars or something like that?
Yeah, you're gonna.
Ooh, is it
I-
Cyberpunk?
Cyberpunk, definitely. Oh my god, definitely.
I forgot
I've
about
always-
Cyberpunk for a while. I'll be honest.
I've always been a
How?
fan
How did
of, like,
people let you
the-
forget about it?
I've always been a
Because
fan of
they want
sci-fi in
people to
general,
know,
but I
remaster.
think like the whole augmentation idea is actually something that I could see happening, like in the relatively near future, right? So, I've always loved the idea of exploring that kind of like Shadowrun or Cyberpunk, or like that kind of retro future kind of thing, right? Because I think that's actually somewhat where we're headed. Obviously, probably not in the same style that we're seeing in these artistic projects and everything, but I think it's interesting how sci-fi a lot of times will ape what is actually in the pipeline, right? Like what's
Yeah.
actually coming up.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah.
A good point of that is, has anyone here seen the live action Lost in Space that Netflix put out a few months ago?
I haven't.
I
I've
watched
seen
the first
movie.
episode. I watched the
I
first
think
episode.
I have seen some of it.
So the reason I bring that up is not to like comment on the show, but they actually use a 3D printer in that show. And it obviously does things that we don't really have the capability of doing with 3D printers yet. Like, it prints a gun, and the gun is made out of both plastic and metal and all this kind of stuff at some point in the show.
Yeah, they do the
right?
same in the Cloverfield paradox, actually.
Yeah, so it's like,
Oh yeah, they did. I think Right,
these are
yeah.
3D printers. These are real tech. These are things that we are seeing today. They're just more sophisticated versions of that, right? Like, that's something I've always loved about watching sci-fi. So I do like a lot of sci-fi things. I'm super excited for Cyberpunk as a result. I haven't really been paying attention to Jedi Fallen, and I'm generally terrible at Souls/Souls-like games, so I'm kind of watching that one a little bit before I decide to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna be watching some things later tomorrow, maybe about it, because I'm actually curious, because I was
I was
was
watching one of my
skeptically,
buddies
like-
stream
Mel,
it earlier.
wait, Mel,
today.
You're muted, yeah.
Mel, you're muted.
Sorry, I pressed it and it didn't go. So no, I'm actually really looking forward to that game. I don't know if I'm going to get around to playing anytime soon, but it looks like something I would really enjoy.
Melly,
See,
have
for
you
me,
were you
I
into the
like
other
this.
single-player Star Wars games at all,
No,
Melly? Like
no, not really.
90s or anything?
I never really got into any of those.
I miss the Jedi Knight games.
Oh, Jedi
I'll-
Knight 2 is one of the best games of all time.
The only
Kyle
one
Katarn is one of my favorite characters to ever come out of the Star
Yeah.
Wars universe.
Yeah,
I
he's
only
great.
ever played the Battlefront games. Those are the only ones I ever.
The
Oh,
old
okay.
school ones were great.
And the Lego
new
ones. And the
are-
Lego ones.
I am
See,
surprised
I was.
how awesome the Lego games are. Like, they're always so
Yeah.
Lego games are fun.
Yeah, they're
I've
really
never played a Lego
enjoyable.
game.
well done.
They're
and,
fun.
I have a lot of them for
So-
free on what is it? What's that one launcher we won't use? Epic or no Origins or whatever that one
Origins.
site gives
Origin.
out like free games all the time.
So I actually had never played. Hi, AJ.
Hey, AJ.
Hey,
Hey,
AJ.
AJ. How are you?
I had never actually played a Lego game before a couple of years ago. Anne Ray, I got this gift sub, but I don't have emotes.
Well, it's a work in progress,
Emotes
all
are
right.
coming, okay?
You guys just hit affiliate like what this last week?
Yeah.
Apparently, I was gifted a sub. Now, where's my VIP?
That's not how it works here, right?
Everybody's complaining.
This is a channel run by Trev. There will never be any
Exactly.
other one.
So I had never actually played a Lego game before. And the first one I had ever played was Lego Jurassic World, because I love Jurassic Park.
Jurassic World is so fun.
I love Jurassic Park. It's one of my favorite movie series. And so it had just come out around when the new, not the newest movie, but at the time
The
of
first
newest
world,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah, it was the first.
AJ, good
Jurassic
decision
World.
continuing that sub.
Aw, thank you, AJ.
For some reason, it came up 4 times in my chat. I don't know if it came up 4 times for you guys.
Nope,
but...
came up one time.
Okay,
on my
it looked like you subbed 4 times. I was like, wait, what?
But yeah, so like for me, I didn't buy it, but like I rented it, because I wasn't sure. I was like, I've never played a Lego game, but I really want to play this because I love Jurassic Park. And so I watched the movie, and then I rented it. I was like, this ought to be pretty fun. I just watched the movie, and then not like it exceeded my expectations in kind of a funny way, because it was so much fun. It was a really fun game, but it's called Lego Jurassic World, so I was expecting just Jurassic World and Lego. Turns out it was actually all 4 of the movies at the time that you could play through their
Yeah.
storylines.
Mhm.
And it was so fun, and it was so entertaining. It was such a funny game. Like,
You do a great job of doing like the physical humor.
Yeah.
it was really
from the
funny.
bricks
Like,
and from the subject matter. Like, they do both.
Well,
They-
you
Exactly.
so
So,
you
like-
started at a Lego game that had like voice acting, but back in the day there
Yeah.
was no voice acting. It was just
Yeah, it
like
was all
facial
physical comedy in
expressions
the
and
earlier
like
one.
noises and stuff like
well,
that.
and it was really funny too, because like one of the things that I noticed is like, like they take like kind of like the more heavy parts. Like, remember in Jurassic Park 2, about the tall grass part where like
Oh
the-
yeah, with the raptors, yeah.
coming and eating everybody, like how do you how do you make that part funny, and like for kids, I guess. And like some of the things that they had, like there was a raptor riding around on a lawnmower in that part, and I just found, like, I was just laughing so hard. One of the things that I found so funny too was in the very first one, for the very first movie of the Lego part, the 3 characters that get killed and eaten in that. Basically what happened with them is that they get eaten and then they get like spat back out, and then at the end of the Jurassic Park 1, basically, they're just left on the island. That's just what happens to them. They're just left there, and they're like, wait for us. And then this is probably my favorite part of this game, and why I ended up thinking, wow, the Lego games are actually really funny. And I still haven't played a lot of them, but I recommend them to a lot of people still, just because I know that they're of how fun they are. But like, this is what really cinched it for me. It was so funny because then when I got to Lego Jurassic World, when the two young boys go into like the old part of the park,
Right.
the three guys from the first movie that
They're
died in the
still
first
there.
movie, they're still there, and they just have these big scraggly beards. Like
Oh my
they've just
God,
been
that's so
there
well done.
forever. And it
It's
was
always
so
great
funny.
when they put that kind of like continuity in.
Yeah. That's actually
That's-
one of the few Lego games I platinumed. I platinumed that one, the Batman one, and I almost did the Marvel one. I feel like they
really
get
tempted
really
to go back and platinum Death Stranding. I'm actually like 75% of the trophies already. So
I feel like with Lego games though, like they're really undermined by the fact that a lot of people think they're kids games, and it's like no, they're mildly entertaining and like fun if like you want to play a game that won't
They're-
stress
yeah,
you
they're-
out.
There's so
Yeah.
many good things that are undermined because of that. Like how many great animated shows, like DC animated shows, have been passed over by people because people think they're for kids. Like
I will say this though, I can't watch the Teen Titans Go because
Teen Titans Go,
the
no,
original
no.
Teen Titans,
I
and
can't.
I'm sorry,
I
Original,
I can't.
so much
Yeah,
better.
and I'm usually a
Yeah,
cartoon
I just
person.
can't.
Rory knows.
Sorry?
I go on about cartoons. I'm usually a cartoon person.
Morgan loves cartoons.
I can't.
Kim
I
Possible.
can- Kim.
You did say you've been watching through that for the last,
Morgan,
like, 3 days.
Morgan has loved Kim Possible on Disney Plus.
Oh, I was so excited to see it on there.
What was
She
the
was.
the bad guy's name in that? Draco or something?
Draken, Dr.
Draken.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
You say Draco like Draco Malfoy?
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I knew it was like something to do with dragon. I was like,
Excuse me.
But yeah, I can't. I loved Teen Titans.
Yes.
And I love cartoons. Like I love all of the things that they've been doing, like on Netflix and stuff. Dragon Prince is one that I can really recommend. That's really, really good. It's from some of the writers of Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you guys liked that. And I loved the Teen Titans. When I found out they were redoing it, I was like, oh, you know, it's kind of cutesy and silly. Like that looks pretty good. And then I couldn't.
Yeah, and then you
do
watch an
it.
episode.
I
and
saw
you're
like 5 minutes one episode, and I was like, what did they do to this show?
yeah, what did
It
they
was
do to
weird.
this?
I was like, where is my childhood?
This is you took the slider of like kids show from like preteen and you like slid it all the way down to Blue's Clues as
Yes.
opposed to like just like moving it like a couple of notches. They were like, nah, Teen Titans, that's perfect. Let's
It went
Blue's
from like
Clues that."
14 to
Like-
12-year-olds to like 6-year-olds.
They really-
Like,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
That's not. You should have went to like 8 or like
Yeah,
9
if
or
you
10.
wanted to go for a younger
They-
audience, you shouldn't have shifted from like the oldest sibling to the youngest sibling. Like, go
Yeah.
for the middle child.
They
Tim,
really
you're like
took the
Tim, you're like
characters-
6'4". You can't fit in a McDonald's plate.
Yeah.
Case. Fucking.
It's the
The thing
perfect
with it too is that
analogy.
they really kind of took the like the characterization of each character, like they really dialed that way back. Like
Yeah.
I think one of the worst ones was with Robin. You
Yeah,
know, like Robin
he-
was a serious character.
He had
Yeah,
such
and
a
now
great
he's,
character
like,
arc
happy-go-lucky,
in the
and it's
original
like,
one that like
That's
in this
not
one it's
Robin.
like,
He's from the Batman comics. Like, his family is supposed to have died in an accident. Like, come on now. I don't know.
That's just what kids watch now, even older
But
ones.
it-
Younger kids are leaning into non sequitur. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
I think that's just like dumber kids of this gen now though. I feel because like
Dumber kids of this gen. Joe's becoming an old man as we speak.
Okay, boomer.
Generation Z.
Okay, but-
I used that earlier
Exactly.
on
Use it on
Please.
Bleeds. Yeah.
Oh, you used okay, boomer and please, poor
Yeah.
Blaze.
Didn't. Oh.
And he was like, "Wow," and I was like, "I mean, you had it coming."
Wow.
Oh man,
I know.
How did that
I know.
happen?
I don't know.
We kept the streak going of calling Bleeds old on yet another podcast.
Poor
Aw.
Blaze.
I don't know if Zippy was still watching cartoons when this show was on, but I know me and Rory have talked about it. The Green Lantern animated series.
I don't think I've
It
watched
was back
that
in
one, no.
2011, Zippy.
It was around
I
the same
don't think
time
I
as
watched
Young
that one.
Justice.
No, I was a university student when I watched that, but like the
Yeah, those shows were mildly underrated because like they got canceled on the network originally, but then they're getting picked. Well, not Green
Oh, it was
Lantern, but
2012,
they're getting.
damn.
I'm trying to think what the most recent thing I watched through was like at least oriented towards kids. I think it was Gravity Falls. I finally got a chance to watch
Morgan
it.
loves Gravity Falls.
Oh.
I don't know what that is.
Amazing. It was
That's
a
way too
huge
new.
trip.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
I loved that show. That was well done. Extremely
Oh, Gravity Falls
well
is one of
done.
my favorites. I really wish that they, and it's kind of sad because I know the guy that created it, probably would say that they just were going in a different direction and they just wanted to end it at that point. But I know a big part of it was because they were having huge odds with Disney a lot.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
I remember one of them that made me so
kind
sad
of an
was
out there show for Disney
yeah, it
like,
was.
in terms of how
Oh,
it
it's a
was.
Disney show.
It was a Disney
Yeah.
show, yes. And one of the things
Yeah.
about it is
And then you watch it and you're like, how did Disney ever greenlight this? Which is exactly why it isn't. A
oh,
thing
that's why I
anymore.
wish that it had gotten like. I wish it would still like if it could get
Mm-hmm.
like bought out by Netflix or something. I would love that because they could just keep going with what they wanted to do. I
It's
can remember.
Disney. They're never going to let it go.
They're never
Disney
gonna let it go, and that's
never
not
lets
fair.
any of their IPs
Let it go.
And then they
Let it
they
go.
lobby to the point where they literally change U.S.
can
laws
I can remember at
to
one
keep
point.
hold of what they have.
I can't remember his last name. It's Alex something.
Alex Hirsch, I think, right?
Hirsch, that's it. Alex
Yeah.
Hirsch, the creator of the show. I can remember at one point he was talking about why they like sometimes were at odds with them because I can remember that they did it was an episode with Cupid. And I found this so interesting. He said they just wanted to do one frame. It was like one frame of these two little old ladies holding hands. That's all they wanted. And I almost said Nintendo.
And they said no, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, Disney was like, nope, no, we're not going to do that. And I think that's one of the reasons why they were just kind of like, I think we're just going to have to be done with the show eventually because they wanted to do a lot of things that that seemed like it should have been fine, but they just weren't allowed to do.
Well, and then you have like the flip side of the coin. Like if you go over to Cartoon Network, you have Steven Universe.
Steven Universe,
is
oh my
like-
god.
I know of the show, and I know it's really
opposite
weird.
mentality in terms of that sort of
Mhm.
thing, right? Like it's kind of odd how you can very easily make the argument that Gravity Falls is quality kids content, and you can very easily make the argument that so is Steven Universe, and yet just on that particular thing that you're talking about alone, like showing how relationships between people work, Steven Universe is miles ahead of Gravity Falls in that respect.
Mhm.
But that's also because it's on Cartoon Network and it's not on Disney. Like,
Exactly. When it comes to different platforms, I mean, like with Netflix, for example, I like Netflix. They really allow like a lot of different things to happen on those shows. Like with the Dark Crystal, if anybody's watched the new Dark Crystal show, which I extremely recommend.
I still need to do that. Yeah.
I watched
I
the first
honestly-
episode. It's amazing.
Oh, who'd you watch that with?
I watched it with my amazing girlfriend.
Oh my god.
But yeah, honestly, like I don't know why I wasn't expecting top quality because it's the Jim Henson company. I don't know why I was not expecting like top quality from them. But I like there was so much that like went on in that show. Like each episode is about an hour long. I was not expecting as many episodes as there were, and I'm not going to say how many episodes just because I don't want people to just expect, oh, here's the last episode. But the quality put into that, but not to mention, like, I mean, Dark Crystal was pretty dark. I mean, was kind of, dark for that sense. Like, it was a 1980s movie.
Yeah.
But the show itself is fairly dark. Which, like, depending on, like, if they had done something like that on, say, like, Nickelodeon or Disney, it might have not been the way that it is, for example. So it definitely has to do with, like, what platform they're running on. Gravity Falls, I definitely think could have had a chance if they were on like maybe Cartoon Network or something different. But
Yeah, I
I
think
think
they
it kinda
definitely would have
depends.
had a longer run on Cartoon Network, and I think,
And it
but
was
I
a
also think
good
it would have been
show.
a slightly different show, right?
it could have been, yeah.
there's probably more than just that example that you gave us with the grandparents holding hands, right? Like there's probably more ideas that were also like axed, right? If that makes sense. And I can see Lillian in the background. It makes me happy. But no, like I'm trying to think. Like there's another show that had like the same kind of animosity where they were like trying to remember what it was now. Pinky and the Brain. I watched I read an article on Pinky and the Brain.
I watched
and
like one scene of that in my psych class because they were like pointing out like they were doing like a brain song or something.
yeah.
Trev.
Pinky and the Brain was
I saw
awesome,
that.
but it's
I love
it's kind of
Pinky
an
and the
older
Brain.
one. But no, the thing with Pinky and the Brain that was funny is that the network came in and they were like, "Hey, you need a third mouse." And they're like, "No, we don't. We're like, this whole show is built on the dynamic of having this idiot mouse and this genius mouse and them interacting with each other.
It's
like that
Pinky
is,
and
Yeah.
the Brain.
that
not
is
Pinky and the
that
Brain
is
in this
the
other mouse.
foundation. So they do an episode.
Pinky
with
the Brain and the
mouse.
third wheel mouse.
Also,
No,
we got a new-
literally, that's the funny part.
A
They
new
do
person
an
that's supposed to
episode
say hi to
where they
Turnahead,
add
who
a
just rolled in
third
here.
mouse,
Hi,
and his
Turnahead.
name is just like Larry, and it's literally like the entire.
Oh,
they
I
even
remember
redid
that.
the opening.
Yeah, Larry. Yeah.
They even redid the opening where it's like, "It's Pinky and the Brain and Larry. It's Pinky and the Brain. I'm Larry." Like just like
So
most
odd. It's just like
annoying,
why you forcing this
obnoxious
person into it?
character. That's the whole reason they did it. They did it like that on purpose, just to say for the network, like, this is why a third character won't work. And yes, we're like taking this and bringing it way too far, but this is why we don't need a third character. Fuck off. Like that was their way of telling the network to screw off. I love it.
But like there's different things that I find very interesting. And now like there's some things that happen like with Disney shows even too that I can't remember if this in particular, this example I'm about to use, happened after Gravity Falls ended or not. But like, because there are some things that that they will have like on the network. Like for example, I'm actually going to use a couple of different examples here. The people who did Good Luck Charlie, they actually had a lesbian couple in one of the episodes, and I think one of the only reasons why they ended up doing it was because the show was ending. And shocker, there were a bunch of people that freaked out about the episode, saying that, oh, it's like having this on this wholesome channel, what are you doing? And it's like, it was ridiculous. But I can't remember if that happened after. No, that one happened I think before Gravity Falls, I want to say, but that was just for an episode, you know. But again, like the thing in Gravity Falls was that it was just going to happen for an episode. What I am happy about, at least, is that they do go forward, especially with like on Nickelodeon. There's it's actually a very good show that I've watched quite a few episodes of, called The Loud House.
And you were telling me about this one, weren't you?
Yeah, so the main character's best friend has two gay married dads. That's like very apparent because like he like says like the characters, like I think it was something like they were gonna have a sleepover, and I can't remember the last name of the characters. But like he said like, oh, Mr. McBride, I think that's what their name was. I was like, hi, Mr. McBride, and hi, Mr. McBride. Like it was obvious that they were these two married parents.
Right.
And they did it in a very, very casual way. It was just these two parents were like, oh, his first sleepover, oh, we're gonna miss him, and that was kind of it. And they're recurring characters where they spend episodes with the main character. There's another one that's a bit more serious, I think, when I got to it, was on this little show called Andy Mack, if you guys have heard of that one. I haven't watched much of it because it's not a cartoon, it's a live
I
action
know
show.
of it, but I've never seen
Yeah.
it.
I've actually heard it's pretty good. And one of the parts that they had talked about on it, that was like between two of the like young teenage characters, that I thought was very interesting that they actually did this, was they had these two characters talking, and I think it was that the main girl character, Andy, got into a relationship with this, I think it was a kid named Jonah, because I can remember watching the clip and thinking, wow, this is so cool that they did this.
Right.
And I think the other kid that this other character was talking to, his name was Cyrus. And she was like, like, are you jealous of those two being in a relationship? Because he was like talking about like, I want to be happy for them, but I'm not. And she was like, do you like Andy? And he was just kind of looking at her, and he was like, and she's like, you like Jonah. And it was a very big part, like for Disney Channel. And it was
Yeah, to
these
even
characters.
have that line at all. Yeah.
Yes. And he, like, obviously it was quite obvious that he said like, yeah, that's what it is. And he was like probably supposed to be like a 13, 14-year-old character. And that was a big step for Disney Channel at that point. Because like having adult characters, you know, other people can try to make the excuse of, well, they're adults, you know, but like this was a like in like no better way to put it, it was a child character, and it was very important
Right,
that
but
happened.
if they're in that age area though, like because you said it was supposed to be like the character is like 13, 14, right?
Exactly.
I mean that's generally when people start figuring that kind of stuff out. So it's like
It was a very important
it's very humanizing to put it in there like that.
because there would be a lot of kids that age that are gonna watch the show, and they like the show, and they're like, oh my god, and, like, this feels
and here's
like
here's a character admitting this. Like that's a huge deal for quite
like
a few people. I would say.
young kid that might be struggling with things could look at that and go, oh my god, this is me, and like really connect with those characters. And
That's
I think it's
why-
really good that Disney is like starting to actually do things like that.
That's one of the reasons I mean, obviously Steven Universe started coming out when I was already like 24, 25, right? So obviously if I watched adult, but like Steven Universe never explicitly comes out and says like these two characters are lesbian or these two characters are, LGBT in whatever way, shape, or form, right? But that's almost the strength of it showing that, because they just treat the relationships that the characters are in as a relationship. It's not special because it's a lesbian relationship or a gay relationship or whatever. It's just two people that like each other and are together, like, and that's how it's constantly presented throughout Steven Universe. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons why I love that show so much, is because not only is it a funny show with a good cast of characters and decent voice acting, in my opinion, but like they have such a forward-thinking view and presentation of the controversial aspects of their show, right? Like they present it as non-controversial because that's the way it should be, right? Like they don't take the time to like there's something to be said for celebrating those sorts of things. I'm not trying to like knock people who are like, I'm proud to be in an LGBT relationship or whatever. Like, yes, be loud and proud, because that's the only way we're going to get to the point where you don't need to do that anymore.
Exactly.
But like that's what I love about Steven Universe, is it's presenting its world as if it was already at that state where everyone just accepts it and nobody cares. Like that, I think, is one of Steven Universe's biggest strengths.
It's normalizing it, is what.
Exactly. Yes, 100%. It normalizes.
One of the things that I found very interesting too is that at one point I do know that Cartoon Network was like at odds with this kind of stuff, because if I remember right, it was Adventure Time. They wanted to do that with Bubblegum and Marceline. And Cartoon Network was basically like, if you do that, your show is going to be canceled. And so they kind of backpedaled on it. And then as soon, like, this started happening more and more with Steven Universe, where they were like, basically throwing like gender roles and like any sort of trope right out the window, and they were just completely turning everything on its back.
The main character is a guy that wears a hot pink t-shirt.
Exactly.
That right there, direct in the character design is
all of his role
tropes.
models.
Like
all of his role models besides his dad are all female presenting characters also. And the thing with Steven Universe also is that it got so incredibly popular that when
get rid of it. Yeah.
all of this was happening, and Cartoon Network is like, we can't get rid of this show.
Gee, it's almost like the people that would be drawn to that sort of thing were looking for a show that does that, because it's almost like there wasn't one that did that before. Just
It's
sad
it's
in
not,
its own right, but
not with like LGBT relationships and stuff, but one show that dealt with a lot of stuff like diversity and stuff very early on and treated diversity as like a really normal thing was actually Star Trek. and
Mhm.
I think that
Yeah.
often goes overlooked because there's like there's a new series Star Trek Discovery, right? It's on
Yep.
CBS, and CBS is like streaming service.
Mhm.
That show got a lot of flack from like old Star Trek fans when it first came out because people were like, "Oh, they're pushing diversity." Like, it's like Star
Which
Trek
is
has
just
always
like,
been a
you know, the
Pushing
first Star
diversity.
Trek was groundbreaking
Like,
for
yeah,
actors
like
at all. Like,
and
like
every time there was a new Star Trek iteration,
everyone was like, "Oh, they're pushing diversity." It's like that's been
it became more and
been
more
the
like
core of
yeah,
it, like the
like
whole
it's
time.
it's like he started in its in its like infancy with the original series, and it was like progressive for the time, a bit progressive at the time, and the next generation
Yeah.
was like a little more, and then eventually you had a female captain of the ship and stuff like that in
Mhm.
Voyager, and like it's like, so if you think Star Trek Discovery is the one
Yeah,
that's
is the
pushing
one that's
diversity,
like
you haven't
pushing
been paying
diversity.
attention
What's
for very
what the
long.
hell?
Yeah.
Come on, yeah. Like, I mean, you go back and if you were to watch the original series now, there is definitely, and I mean definitely, some dated societal things. in
You
that.
bet there
And
is.
I'm not going to deny that, but you have to remember that this is like the 1950s and 60s, like that. Even though you might watch it and you might watch a certain scene and you'll be like, I'm offended for that person. Like in
Yeah.
this scene, I'm offended for that person. That was still a very progressive show for its time, like you're saying,
Extremely, yeah,
which is so funny because there's so many diehard Star Trek fans that are like, why are all this new things so diverse? What's the point there? And it's like, do you remember Lieutenant Uhura? Do you like
They're not-
yeah,
they're
okay,
not
they
as
put her in a
diehard as
skimpy
you
mini
think.
skirt, and there was all that kind of stuff going on there, but like, it's still a
That's-
black actress
well,
in a show from 1960. Like that.
I'm glad you
was
talked about. You
groundbreaking
mentioned
at the time.
the clothing, because as the series progresses, actually, like if you watch Next
Mhm.
Generation, like first episode, Troy is in like the tiniest skirt they could get away with on network television, right?
Pretty
but
much,
only
yeah.
for the first episode. Then they change it to that like workout outfit for like a good few seasons, which is strange. But then by the end, she has her own proper like
Yeah.
Starfleet uniform, right?
Well, and you'll notice, like, even in Discovery, right? Like, everybody is in the same uniform now. Like, male, female, alien,
Yeah.
non-alien, they're all in the same uniform now.
yeah,
like-
exactly.
So again, it's like one of those things where, like, yes, they definitely do some things that are a little shitty / towards the times, but like, it's always been something where diversity has been a huge part of it. And even the creator,
Gene Roddenberry.
Gene Roddenberry, thank you. God, I'm terrible with celebrity names. Absolutely terrible with celebrity names.
I love that you called Gene Roddenberry a celebrity. You're now my favorite person.
But even the creator has said that since the beginning. It's always been about diversity and including, people. Like, why else would you have a show about going out and meeting aliens and trying to be diplomatic with them instead of going out and like, oh, we're
It's
Yeah, we're just gonna
literally-
kill everybody.
Yeah,
It's like,
like-
that's not.
Yeah, it's literally the point of the show.
yeah, like the whole point of the show. Yeah, whatever.
One of the
No,
things
Star
that I
Trek
feel
was never
like-
about diversity.
One of the things I feel like too when it comes to like older shows and movies and and stuff like that is that you can't exactly knock them for the things that they said because at the time it might
It's
have
kind
not
of a
been
touchy subject, right? It might
Exactly.
not have even been something that they realized was offensive at the time.
exactly.
Yeah,
But-
yeah,
That's
sometimes
actually-
it was.
That's
Sometimes
actually
it
a
was.
funny thing because
Sometimes it was,
Disney
yeah.
Plus is doing that. If you go and look at some of the older offerings on Disney Plus, it will say it basically has like the synopsis of the movie in the description, and then at the end there's a copy pasted 2 sentences, and it's something along the lines of like, this work is presented as it was originally created in its time period, and it says, and I quote, something along the lines of like, cultural depictions may no longer be accurate. That is their disclaimer
Yeah.
for
Or
this
may have
movie
never
was
been
made in
accurate.
1960 and yeah, no, that's the thing is like, I still think that they could get into trouble with that wording because they said it may no longer be accurate, where it's really just should be the cultural depictions in this are not accurate.
That's not accurate at all.
Because
Well, and,
even
like, the
back then,
thing-
it was not accurate. We just didn't realize how much of assholes we were yet.
Because the thing that what we have to do, because like I said, like you can't exactly like knock the movie itself because it is a product of its time, you know. What
It's a product of its time, and it could easily be a product like the people that working on it are ignorant to the fact that
exactly,
it was
because
extremely
it's
offensive.
like people in the
like,
60s aren't going to understand, like, or like even in like the 40s, for example, you know, like it's not like they can see into the future and be like, "How we better like try to make this as nice as possible for the people in 2019," you know.
Yeah.
What we have to do as people now, like we just have to reflect on like why that's not good, I feel like. But we just have, you know, because like I completely understand that, like
I do appreciate that they are putting that disclaimer in, but the thing is like the problem I have with it is, and this isn't really necessarily on Disney, so I don't know, you know, we can really knock Disney for this. It's more of a parental thing, but how many parents are going to let their kids watch those movies and just not explain those
not
things?
say anything?
Yeah.
Probably a
Not
lot.
say anything about like
night,
why
Lonnie.
Disney put
later,
this
Lonnie.
disclaimer
Take it
on
easy.
there,
Night, Lonnie.
you know? Or
Well,
even
you
not
also-
see the disclaimer at all and just be like, well, this is something I watched when I was a kid and I turned.
I mean, the thing is, like, well, as well, like with parents, like, you ever see those like tablet parents? They're like, here's your
Oh,
tablet
oh
and
my
some money
God,
for
yeah.
smokes.
Yeah.
Go out and survive. Like
You know,
that's how a lot of kids are gonna watch Disney Plus.
Right,
Yeah.
you know, there's
Yeah.
the argument that
Those parents are
millennials
like
are
all
the,
white
the
people,
generation
shit.
raised by TV, but that's not actually the case, right? You know, it's just a small portion of the generation that's raised by TV. But I mean, tablets are the new TV. You know, there's going to be a generation of people that have grown up with a tablet in their hands
Yeah.
since virtually
Yes,
day
Exactly.
one.
And
The,
not
Didn't
a box
actually
of
have any
crayons.
parental,
Yeah,
you know,
it's-
didn't actually have any parental interaction.
It-
Like,
and if you don't
That's
believe
the
me,
big
go on
difference.
an airplane.
Exactly. Every kid has an iPad or a tablet.
Yep.
Like, bro, like
Yep.
I don't even have one of these.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah,
have a
let kids
tablet,
be.
you know?
what? You know what? I know I sound like a bitter old man. Let kids be bored from time to time.
well, no, and like,
either
I'm
gonna figure
fine
out how
with
to
giving a tablet to your kid, and I'm fine with even using the
As long as they understand
Do
what
something
means,
with it,
yeah.
be alone
As
for a
long as
couple
they
of
understand something
you
else.
still have to
like-
be a parent. Like, you can't
Yeah.
let the tablet be the parent for you.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can use it as a band-aid, not as a, you know, well,
The tablet can be
Kids
bad
raise
in some
themselves,
cases
you know?
too.
Yeah, Johnny,
considering,
I've
like,
coined that. So be careful. That's a registered
Tablet.
trademark.
Tablet.
the tablet can be bad in some cases too. Like for like I know I don't know how some parents thought that this was fine, but like that they just let their kids get on YouTube and just let them
Oh.
go wild.
yep.
It's like, okay, here, I'm gonna start a
You
video
ran
for
there.
you. Here you go. Like it could go on and
And then
on,
they
and eventually
leave.
you'll get yeah, and then they just go.
And then they
And,
just
like-
leave and they let their kid click around.
That's
and,
the thing.
and
Like
suddenly
tablets
they're
now are
watching,
so
you know,
intuitive, like
some
counterintuitive
guy
that
rant about fascism or something.
you can
So-
use
I'm-
them so
I'm
easily.
gonna
Probably
play
not true,
I'm gonna
yeah,
play
but-
devil's advocate because I
Far
have
away.
I have a lot of friends that have kids.
You have a lot of tablet parent friends.
Well, I wouldn't say that they're tablet parents, but I've had a couple because I've asked them about that. It's like, you know, because we talk about like, you know, is it okay that they're like either on the phone or tablet this much? And like one of them like has told me is like, listen, it's like obviously it's not ideal. It's like, but when you are in a situation and your kid is screaming and you're in a restaurant, it's like, you know, the only thing that's going to get them to be quiet is give them the iPad. It's like, I'm going to give them the iPad.
That's
Like,
a good point.
even though they're like, I know I shouldn't and I should probably do something else, but
This-
like when you're tired, when you've got like no sleep and then your kid's just screaming, it's like a lot of times it's a lot easier
Well,
just to give
No,
them a
and
tablet.
I can
I
see
agree.
that.
I think there's
there's
also
always
big
two sides to every story. Right?
Well, there's
Yeah.
I think
So,
it's
like
a
how much
generational
time you have
thing.
for your kids. It's
Yeah.
like your job won't let you have time off. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you like being a parent in like today's like sort of rushed organization may be different than it was, you know, when
Well,
our parents.
That's
were.
the point I was getting to. Is
Yeah.
like it's a generational thing. Like kids nowadays, it's like they see that if they complain and whine and stuff, then that result. It's what is it in psychology? It's like the something consequences covenant or something. I don't remember. Cognitive behavior or something where it's like you do something and you get rewarded as a result.
Like positive reinforcement.
Yeah,
Oh,
reinforcement.
Oh,
Yeah. They see that you can get away with, well, not get away, but the more you whine and complain and like scream and make a fit is how you get rewarded with the iPad. But like back when I was a child, is like if you did that shit in public, you're like, once you got out of like the public area, like that belt was coming off and like you're gonna take that. Like it. There was
See,
no, there was
Oh,
no. Oh, here's just like here, have whatever you
Well,
want.
it wasn't,
just
like,
like,
getting out in public. My mom
Yeah.
just had that way of saying that one thing that would make you feel horrible about yourself, like on the inside, and you would just be like, oh.
See, like for me,
Okay.
it was like my parents, because like they didn't do things
That was
like
a talent
that, but, like,
of my mom's. I will never be able to replicate that, but she could just say 2 sentences, and you would just.
It was like,
feel
oh,
like
shit,
the
I need
worst
to
human
stop
in the
now.
world, like, no, okay,
see,
I'm
like
sorry.
for us, it would be like they would pull you close. They could. This was the scariest thing to like my brothers and I. My parents would just pull us close and just talk very quietly. Like that's what they would
Yes.
do.
oh god.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then when
Which
we
is
get,
almost more terrifying.
Yeah.
then we get home and our controllers to our N64 were missing.
Yeah, you know.
That's what it was
For-
for us.
Yeah.
For us, it was always like mom would like pull us close, and she would just say like, and it was always you know, in retrospect, it was always really intelligent what she would say, because she would basically just say something along the lines of like, do you realize how many people can hear you screaming right now? You know, like just like bringing in the fact that, hey, you're in a public place and you're throwing a temper tantrum. Like, how does that make you look? Like, that was the kind of stuff that my mom would pull whenever that was happening, and then you would just be like, oh, okay. You just like turn
Yeah.
inward and you just like shuffle behind her for the rest of the grocery store trip.
And then you just have other issues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just like,
Real
oh,
life.
okay, I feel like
Other
I'm a
social
terrible human
anxieties.
being now. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like I think like
Yeah.
it's honestly I completely understand, like there are some parents that are just like, I'm just gonna give this to them and then they will stop being like the way that they are being right now.
I think the big issue there is like parents get this idea in their head that they have to be their child's friend. Your job as
Yeah,
a parent
that's-
is not to be their friend. Yes, your job is to make them happy and your job is to make them yada yada, but your real job is to teach them to be a member of society. And them throwing temper tantrums is not not conductive to them being productive members of society, right?
Yeah,
So,
because
like,
we all know adults like that too, who like just came up with that and they never stopped. Like,
Yeah.
and they just do that at work. And
Yep.
just like yell at the people who work for them, and you're like,
yeah,
"Ooh."
Yeah.
or they work at, or the people that work with them, which is
Because
even
like
worse.
none of these people as kids change. Because like you get used to it as a kid and you progress and you think that's how it's supposed to work. It's like, oh, I yell and scream. This is what happens. I get what I want. It's like, no, that's because you were raised in that way. It's like that shouldn't have been your upbringing, but it was.
There's nothing worse
But that's
than
just how
meeting
it
someone
worked,
you knew
yeah.
in high school, haven't, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, you're still a dick.
I know this.
Or what's funny is when you meet one of like your old buddies from high school, right? And like within like an hour, you're just cracking all the same inside jokes you were cracking 10 years ago, and you're like, wait a oh fuck, like I'm slipping back into the same guy I was. No, I find that funny. I actually, one of my high school buddies just started streaming on Twitch as well.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
And so it's been fun to just like hang out in his chat and meme the old memes.
The
So me and Roy had this conversation. Sorry for interrupting, but
no, far away. Yeah.
we were talking about how like there's people on Twitch who like either know people on Twitch from like in real life, or they're like people who just start randomly coming on Twitch and then they get to know these people and then they eventually meet up with them in real life. Because Rory was actually under the impression that I knew all of the people like Ash, Eric, and all of them in real life before I was on Twitch, and I was like, no, I was like, I met them on Twitch, and then like years later I met them in person.
I don't know anybody who's
Is
ever
that
done
like
that.
your general thing? Because you said that he just started going on Twitch.
Yeah,
or-
for Twitch at least, yeah, I would say so. There's very few people on Twitch that I knew in real life. Really, just this one guy. There's a couple other guys I know from down here in Texas who will stream on Twitch, but they don't actually like stream on Twitch to stream on Twitch. It's more of a I'm going to stream for 2 or 3 of my friends so that they can see whether they want to, buy this game and play it with me, kind of thing. So yeah, for me, everyone that I've met through Twitch and met in real life, it's been I met them on Twitch and then I met them later on, kind of thing. So at least for me, yeah, I would definitely say the second one. Now, this guy, I knew him in high school before either of us had any aspirations of being any kind of streamer. And it was just funny because we both started streaming right around the same time, and I was just like, "Hey, it's you," and he was like, "Hey, it's you." And we've been regulars in each other's channels ever since, which is good. So, it's really good to see him as well because it's just another way to get to connect with the people you know, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
100%.
I think that's great. Like I get to actually crack jokes at him on a regular basis instead of whenever one of us remembers that the other exists and gives him a call. Like. Because I'm terrible about that. In fact, I forgot to wish my dad a happy birthday like 2 days ago, and I need to call him. I'm terrible about that kind of stuff. So.
See, now you got me wondering, like, if do I have friends from like high school and college that like are also on Twitch? I just don't know that.
Yeah,
it's
kind of random that I ran into him. Like,
probably, yeah.
I don't remember exactly how it ended up happening. I remember, like, wait a second, I know that username, and then I clicked and I saw his face, and I was like.
Like, I know you.
Well, yeah, no, I remember a guy I used to know in school. I like we went to elementary school together, and he's a Twitch streamer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, damn, like that's really random.
Yeah.
I haven't popped on over to say hi to him yet, but I should actually go and do that.
I feel
He's
like
actually a popular Twitch streamer though, so I might have trouble like getting into that chat and explaining all the lore on like
right,
who the
yeah.
fuck I am.
Yeah, like how do I like talk to them in their chat so I'm not like out with a DM or something and be like, hey, I know you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like what? Like there's no good way of this. They
yeah, if you ever want to learn my name, you can, because I don't really care if you guys know my name. If you want to, like, it's funny because every time I raid him or whatever, he's like, oh, that, and then he says my name instead of Zippy, and it's just like he always feels bad about it. And it's just like, bro, whatever. Anyone can Google my username and they'll figure out who I am.
like it's like at a certain point. Well, especially there's no hiding your first name on the internet.
yeah.
Oh,
Bye
no.
to hiding your first name.
You'll get both my names if you Google.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. So
Tell him you're not a tablet kid.
Well, like I'm pretty easily identified by everything I say. Like people know where I go to school. People know what my program is. Like you can just Google my research area and you might
Yeah,
get
you'll
me.
find
Like
me.
if you know
Yeah.
specifically what I've worked on. Like it's okay.
I'm pretty sure when Facebook did the whole thing where they were like, you can choose what your profile URL is, I put zippy.spinhead, so you can literally I mean, it's easy to figure out what my name is.
So it's getting on the late side. And usually what we do when it's getting on the late side is we ask people if they have any particular last minute questions for Zippy or any of the rest of us. And I also want to I want to also clue up on some good news, which is our favorite game, everyone's favorite game, Anthem, is getting a whole bunch of updates.
They already tried that though. They did that like a month after it came out, and
They're apparently working on a total overhaul. So
I have heard about this actually.
Anthem 2.0.
Anthem 2.0. So maybe me and Trev will test this one too, and we know it'll be good.
It'll be entertaining, maybe.
So for those who don't know, who don't watch Decker's channel or weren't watching Decker's channel when he was playing XCOM, so one of Decker's characters in XCOM is named Dong Wang. All right, and for some reason, like this one character misses every shot. Like could be 98% chance to hit, misses everything. He's the worst RNG I've ever seen in my entire life. And on Decker's channel, we've developed a cohesive lore behind him. And my favorite trait that he has is he always goes all in on new games, but it's only games that end up failing. But he's or end up being forgotten. So he's the world's best player at Virtua Fighter. Right? And he was a day one buyer and is max level in Anthem. That's another important thing.
Oh man. That's funny.
that's something that's really impressive that you have under your belt. And like, I'm the best player in Anthem. Like, what?
There's dozens of us. Dozens!
I love that reference. Arrested Development, for those people who don't know. 100%. It's a top tier show. You gotta watch.
Dozens of us.
My dude's name was Raffle. I love XCOM. That's so good. There was a YouTuber that I watched do several playthroughs of XCOM, XCOM 2,
the Long War mod for XCOM and Long War mod for XCOM 2 as well. And it was always funny because he named all of his characters after his like regular viewers, right?
Yeah.
And there was one guy that, and he's got like a randomized list, so he just rolls for names on that list, right? There's one guy, without fail, no matter what, every time he comes up, and his name is Johnny Maple, and of course he has the Canadian flag on his guy because he let the viewers like do the whole character, right? Like do all the customization for the character. So this guy has just got like the Canada flag everywhere. He's got like a Boone hat. Just looks like he's going out hunting deer or something. And without fail, every single time he rolls this guy, they become like the like hero character that particular campaign. And I always thought that was funny because it was just like, oh, there's Johnny Maple. Game's over. Everybody, we won. Like, there's no way we can lose. We got Johnny Maple now.
Those
games
games
you can make with XCOM.
like there's no like the characters, they're like random or whatever, but you get so invested in them, especially if you life friend and you're why I can't have like die, I gotta reload this damn save so I can save his life.
There's a playthrough I did of the original XCOM where I actually like spent the time to customize each character to not only give them my real life friends' names but also like kind of what they looked like.
I'm sorry, the original XCOM?
No, like the Firaxis reroll.
Oh Jesus! I was gonna say that game is so hard, dude. Why did you do that to yourself?
I did play that game a couple of times. Would not recommend going back for them. They're really good.
You don't want to know what the opposite of hand holding is. Play the original XCOM. It like doesn't tell you.
Is it that bad?
It's so complicated. It's so complicated. It doesn't tell you anything.
It's super complicated, and the penalty is still the same as the newer XCOMs. I.e., all of your guys die, and the world blows up.
Like I would pay actual real life money to watch Trev play the original XCOM.
Oh god. It would be entertaining, but I don't think Trev would be entertained.
I'm willing to back the Kickstarter for that, right? Like,
I would honestly be very entertained just like trying to get like to make Trev like play like 2 hours of the JRPG of my choice.
Oh god.
That would be.
Can you imagine, Trev?
I cannot get through the opening of like any G. I feel bad because I know there's so many good games.
Make him play a Weeb game.
Imagine Trev trying to play like an Atelier game. Like
I should, this is $1 million idea. I should just start doing this on YouTube and just like recording different segments of me doing this as challenges and be like, all right.
Plays games he doesn't want.
I'd like
here we are again.
I'd like to do one where we
be like a spin-off of the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Can we do one of those for Decker too?
Oh my god.
I feel like he has such a large category of stuff like he's not gonna like that it's like anything you throw at him. It's just like
make Decker play Animal Crossing for 2 hours.
Oh,
yeah,
god.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would pay to see that too. All right, it's getting late. I have a wonderful person to call later tonight. And Zippy, you've been a terrific guest. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And
no problem. I love being here. This was a lot of fun.
I don't know if you signed up for this, but you did. All our guests are recurring guests, so you're going to be back. So
yeah, I'm fine with that. Just let me know.
You can be called upon at any time. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for joining. Just to hang out and chat, and of course for the subs and the gift subs, and all that good stuff.
I'll work on getting OBS to work later, and then actually having like alerts and shit. So then you guys
we'll have alerts.
But
someday we'll have emotes, perhaps. But importantly, very importantly, we're gonna be back next Friday, and we're not just going to be back with anybody. We're going to be back with Tiff, who's our first recurring guest, the first person to answer the call. And
that's largely due to the fact because we were all just in Toronto hanging out. So.
Yes. So it will include a recap of Telericon, all the secret lore, all the behind-the-scenes stuff you didn't know about.
I'm so excited.
You can finally ask about the heat lamp dancing.
Okay.
Heat lamp dancing. We could talk about the McDonald's. We
can talk about the Canadian notes.
The guy who yelled at us about God.
Talking about McDonald's, there's got to be like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit style contract here. they have to have equal time as Wendy's, so you have to talk about them for at least 30 minutes. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
And we can
That's
talk
a
to you
throwback of a
about
reference.
the fake bathroom
yeah.
doors, which to me is the
Oh,
highlight
the
of
bathroom
whole-
doors? Yeah, no, those were.
Oh god.
I'm so ready. I'm so ready.
So please join us for that. It'll be fun. And also, if you don't follow Tiff already, you made a terrible mistake. Go do that right now and fix your mistakes. All right. We'll be back next Friday, and eventually, I can say this now because she said that she's going to be
Oh,
on
right,
this
yeah.
podcast. Eventually, we're going to have Win on this podcast because I was talking to her the other day, and she wants to be on the podcast. And if you don't know Win, I'm going to
Well, her name isn't Win anymore on here.
Yeah, I
It's
know,
monochromatic.
the monochromantic.
Well,
The,
same
uh,
shit. Like,
oh, that's oh.
No, it's not.
She is a she's a streamer mostly of Elder Scrolls and Fallout. Very into modding. So if you ever want to know about like if you're ever like, oh, what do I do with this? Like, I don't know how to do the load order. Go talk to Win because she knows how to do the load order.
And she knows me as the person who comes into her chat just to roast. Like every time I go in there, I roast her and the chat in one comment, and then that's it. That's all I ever say.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
How does this
Trev
not
has-
surprise me at all?
So be
Trev
prepared,
brought
guys.
me into a lot of streams, and this is one I brought Trev into.
So guys, be prepared. As soon as you say, "Hey, I'm a friend of Trev's," you're gonna.
Yeah, you're gonna get attacked.
It's just
So-
gonna get bopped.
I feel like I'm already
But she's
following
wonderful, a
them.
really great, talented
You
content
probably
creator.
are, because
who-
Rory has.
I've rated her.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
multiple
he's-
times,
he's rated
even though
her
she is
to
a flight
Okay.
rate.
her name was
was-
different before. That's
He
why.
was Wasteland.
She was
Win.
Wasteland Win, yeah.
She's
Oh,
now
okay.
monochromantic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
But her
yeah,
name
I'm
is
already,
Win,
I'm already,
like, that's
I'm already
her,
following
like-
her.
Yeah, she's terrific. Please give her a follow. I was so lucky to find her one day randomly on Twitch.
And then you randomly found Squirrely there too, and you're
And
like,
then
what
Squirrely
the fuck?
just happened to be sitting there, and he was a VIP. What are you doing here? You exist outside of Tiff's channel, where you come in and say something about something being creamy, and then you're gone.
It's so
Alright, guys.
funny when people are like that. They're like, "Wait, you're in other channels?"
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
what?
exactly.
watch multiple Twitch streamers. It's a thing that people do.
I only followed Tiff for ages, though. Like, I was exclusively a fan of her channel for a while until I found that. All right, guys, we're gonna see you guys soon.
All right. We are
We're
going
we're
to
actually
be-
going to host Stidius,
Oh.
and this is something I'd never normally do because he's playing
Skater
Tarkov.
Yeah.
But because Zippy is here and he's also a fan of the game, this is the one time it's gonna happen.
That
Also,
and-
You don't have to
Darius
do
is
it
on-
on my account.
Darius is on.
Yeah, and he's on our
yeah.
our team now.
Oh, wait, hold up, hold up.
X
Hello,
Hold up,
Mr.
XMR just
Whoosh.
rolled in. Hello,
Hi.
XMR.
Hello.
Unfortunately, we're just ending for today. Hold up, let me give him the lore, okay? All right, here's what's going on, XMR.
I love
All right, we're a podcast from time to time, every Friday at 9:30, except when it's not Friday at 9:30, and it's
It's
always an
usually
hour,
Wednesday.
except for all the times when it is, which is all the time.
Yes.
So we'll be back next Friday, 9:30 Eastern, with our friend Tiff, and we're gonna run down the trip we took. Now,
Sugar knows the Lord.
No,
you-
go ahead and follow. We won't
follow.
stop
yeah,
you.
yeah, far away. You don't.
Yeah, we love that.
You don't know about the trip we took because you don't know who we are. But I promise it'll be fascinating. So
Green screens to hide my dirty
We'd love to
laundry.
see you
That
again.
clearly
Lately, we've been doing a lot of gaming stuff too. So if you like watching gaming streams, we do that here every so often as well,
Every once in a while, we'll
we
do
do,
Monster
yeah, we
Hunter
do
World
Overwatch or
or
Monster Hunter.
Overwatch.
yeah.
as well as podcasting.
Oh my
so
God,
yeah,
you know
stay
what?
around for that.
What?
I just realized. I don't know if you two have it, but we haven't played Don't Starve together in like so long, Melly and I. Like that would be something fun to play. Just
I'll-
I remember
I don't wanna turn into a
I remember her
stupid
playing that with Wall, and she was like,
beaver.
"Why am I a spider now?" I was like, "What?"
Actually,
Or
I
no,
do know
beaver.
the-
I turned into a beaver.
Sure,
Melly,
you know
Zippy
the,
didn't want to be the only person on the podcast with a green screen, so he moved the camera.
I did,
Yes,
yeah.
you did say that.
No, I
And
mean,
I
do
figured
you
if
know?
I was not having the green screen, I better have the cat.
No, I think it's
choice.
because Trinsic asked. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I was just saying it because it had a previous owner. I don't know if you knew that.
I totally think that.
So there's actually
Oh.
a command on my channel related to that. Next time you're in there, type in !GGG.
I feel like it's a very specific thing that you.
Yes, it is. I got permission from the previous owner to put that command in before you run it, and you're like, what the fuck, Zippy?
Alright, so.
Thanks for the lore.
right.
Yes, thanks for the lore.
XMR.
We're gonna raid Didius. Tune in next
Hopefully
time,
we'll
guys.
see you
It's gonna be a
again.
blast.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you everyone else for hanging out.
See you soon, guys.
Bye.
Take it easy.